Hey, what's up, man? Hello? Your mic's not working. Fuck.
What's up?
Hey, what's up?
You sure?
Yeah, it
Is it
works
working
now.
now?
It works now.
What's up, man? Hey, I got something for you right off the bat.
What's that?
Hello?
Yeah, yeah. Hello?
Can't hear you. I don't know what's going on.
Uh,
Oh wait, there it is. I
okay,
got you.
okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I
That
can hear
good?
you.
Okay, cool. I couldn't hear you. But listen, man, I brought something for you just off of what you were saying, right? This is one of my favorite things. It's a little very underrated bit of American literature, right? But the first thing Edgar Allan Poe ever published was a series of sonnets. It's like an
Oh
epic
yeah,
poem
I
that
know. I know that one.
Tamerlane.
Yeah, yeah. I know
Have
about
you
it.
read the original though? Because he published the original version only in 50 copies,
No,
most of which
I
he tried to
haven't.
destroy
I've
later.
skimmed the other version, but I haven't fully read
All
it.
right, I want to read this one for you. It's the 15th sonnet in the original version. So it's pretty good, pretty relevant. But look round thee now on Samarkand. Is she not queen of earth, her pride above all cities? In her hand their destinies, with all beside of glory which the world hath known. Stands she not proudly and alone? And who her sovereign? Timur, he, whom the astonished earth hath seen with victory on victory, redoubling age, and more, I ween, the Jingis yet re-echoing fame. And yet now, what was he? What a name! The sound of revelry by night comes o'er me with the mingled voice of many with a breast as light, as if 'twere not the dying hour of one in whom they did rejoice, as in a leader haply, power its venom secretly imparts. Nothing have I with human hearts. Because Tamerlane, right, he sort of comes to represent in the Romantics this sort of like he kind of is equated with Napoleon in a lot of
Yeah,
ways.
yeah. Napoleon is who is that? Who's that? Who is that aristocratic woman? I think she's from the House of Orleans who hated Napoleon. And what was her name?
So are you thinking of Bathory? I don't know. There's a lot of. I'm not super on the
She,
deep onto French
one
aristocracies.
of Ezra calls her the Karen of France, the French Karen. She was very
French Karen.
Anglophilic. She loved Britain. She was very Anglophilic.
That's pretty standard. That's something like it's man, dude, I don't know where to start. There's so much stuff I've fucking uncovered since last time I talked to you. I've like put together so many puzzle pieces. You were saying that like your patriotic socialism arc has been kind of instructive. But I think that's always true. Whenever you get mass scapegoated, that's when you're learning something, like you're like really on something and you're going to like learn something from it is what I've discovered, right? So
Yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
we've both gone through that quite a bit,
It's just a
and
little
you
awkward.
always learn something.
It's just a little bit awkward because it's like, is this isn't like I never thought it was that big of a deal, But here we are, I guess.
Oh no, it's a big deal. No, if it
Yeah,
wasn't a big deal, then it wouldn't need to be said, and saying it wouldn't be such a wouldn't garner this sort of response. It actually is a huge deal. It's actually a
yeah,
huge deal that this has like become a massive kerfuffle over being like well, it's so absurd, but like they interpret like what you're saying is basically a kind of like they can't really distinguish between the institution and like the things that are being represented or ostensibly represented in that institution. Like it's weird because they wouldn't say this even if you're like, let's say you were like a black military vet and you're like, yeah, I'm like a patriot and I'm also a socialist, like I'm a veteran or whatever. They'd be like, yeah, cool, based, whatever. Like, do you think they'd really be as as critical in a weird sense, right?
no, no,
Because
they wouldn't. But I don't know. It's
like in the
one of
DSA, they had the
the
soldiers
only
manual, right?
reason someone ever is gonna come and identify with Marxism Leninism right now in the U.S. is that they just hate they just hate the world they live in, and they just think it's a way out. They're like, oh, I hate America so much, and I hate everything it stands for. So let me just be the opposite of what I think
It's to
America
it's
is.
actually the same exact reason why, and it's like the same like thought processes that happen why all these like post Austrian libertarians becoming neo Nazis or whatever. It's literally the same thing. It's just
Yeah.
being like, what do you think is going to offend this people the most? And then it's like it's very much LARPy. It always has been LARPy for like the last 50 years at least of when it comes to like connections to being like the vanguard of like the proletariat or whatever. Considering you
Yeah.
can't really be that and be the main construction, like the emerging out of the very people who like created the conditions for World War I and World War II in the first place. So
Well,
it doesn't really make sense.
the thing that really bother, the way where I've been at, and I don't expect to ever make this like these dumbasses on Twitter will never understand this. So there's no point in trying to explain it to them. But you and many others get this: is that communism in the 20th century was America. That was fundamentally America, right? I mean, like, you had these traditional societies, the Soviet Union, Russian Empire, China, and communism was like the external manifestation of what America was. And that's not necessarily a good thing either, because communism represented the apocalypse of modernity, right? um, these societies were facing, just like this complete leveling and this complete kind of castration in the psychoanalytic sense or whatever, just this complete kind of alienation in a sense, right, between people and their traditional way of life. This was the initial stage of communism, I would say. Like, for example, during the war communism of the Civil War, and then the very early stages of the collectivization, right? Not, I'm talking about the long-term consequences, but just the beginning. And then in China, the Great Leap Forward. These were all kind of just apocalyptic phenomena that they survived and endured through. But
The unfolding of America is itself this revelation, this sort of apocalypse. This is like how William Blake sees it as like the American Revolution is happening. That sort of fire is what spreads. Like the American Revolution, like the ability for like people to come out in this exact sort of way was extremely radical, and it's something that's like downplayed by pedagogy in America now.
yeah,
You basically get this idea where they first present it as being like, oh, it's like super radical, like when you're a kid or something, and you get like a comic book version of it. And in some ways, the comic book version is closer to reality than the more quote unquote nuanced interpretations you get later, where it's like, well, actually, like, the British Empire had gotten rid of slavery and they were more progressive. So this was
yeah.
just
But
represents
what
like the
what I
bourgeois landlord
what I mean
reaction or
by
whatever.
like apocalypse though is this just like, so with modernity, right? Specifically the English, the original modernity basically was this breakdown of meaning in the world, right? It was basically this like, um look,
Well,
for example, modern science, right? Oh, this is, you invested so much meaning in the idea of Genesis and creation. Well, hey, fuck you. Turns out we came from monkeys, or we revolve around the sun. We're not the center of the universe. Like, it's a form of this kind of humiliating, just disclosure of some kind of meaninglessness, right? And where the kind of Satanism of modernity, as I put it in quotation marks, comes in, is basically where it says this meaningless humiliation of man's senses and sense of meaning in the world is itself the metaphysical absolute that exists for its own sake. Something is only as true. It's Nick Land's Gnon, the Gnon, whatever. The
nature, the god of nature, the
yeah, it's
deist
just
god.
this like fundamental alienation, basically, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But so to
It's
me, the way I've come to see it is that the the British Empire, the sovereign rule of the British Empire after the Glorious Revolution, was the rule of this kind of nihil, right? It's a sovereign nihil, sovereign nothingness. And to me, the American Revolution was a way of decapitating this sovereignty, this crown, and finally opening up, uh, opening up mankind again to the kind of ambiguity, metaphysical ambiguity. Instead of saying the humiliation and radical alienation of modernity is itself existing for its own sake, it's an ambiguity instead. We don't know what it means. Just this fundamental ambiguity. This is how I understand pragmatism, right? With pragmatism, it's
Yeah,
not,
they
you
were
don't
like they're
first
like
begin with like some loaded sense of meaning and then you impose that on reality. You begin with an ambiguity. Well, if it works, it works, and what the implications that has for meaning is open, right? But the reason America is such an evil country, so to speak, is because even this pragmatism itself, corresponding to each ruling class that has consolidated in the history of the U.S., is turned into a sovereign object, right? It's like, it's not only that if it works, then it's fine. It's that the only reality is what works. There is no meaning in
instrumentality. Yeah, this
exactly.
is
Yeah,
a. I was just reading. This is like a big gap between. If you read Walter Lippmann and John Dewey, like their books that were kind of polemical against each other. Because John Dewey has this very. John Dewey is like a Hegelian though. Like he's like very erudite, and he's part of that sort of like transcendentalist, like post transcendentalist kind of look at the world in America. He comes from that school, so you know he like reads German idealism. He's like that, whereas like Lippmann is very much in the like British utilitarian tradition more so. So when he's like interpreting these things in like a pragmatic sense, or like saying things that like everything in the world is like a tool, and like all of man's creations are like tools, like we're creating these things, you know what I mean, like that type of pragmatism that
yeah.
has like a very that
Well,
has a very that's like a Maoist kind of conception also though, right, where it's like
yeah.
where the proof of things is in their continued social utility. Like if
Well,
something continue a practice that continues to exist has some sort of truth to it because it is maintains like stability over time.
well,
But the problem is like with people like Lippmann, they go, yeah, but these things cannot emerge from the people because the people, the masses, the things that emerge from their minds, like the systems that they create, are anarchy. Whereas the elites, we're the ones who can create systems of order. So what our job is to do is to program these games effectively, or like tools like social conditions, social programs, population control in general. And that's our job. That's our burden as like the elite. We have to create and like maintain order. Whereas what Dewey was more interested in was saying that we need to create a system that is like kind of like order on a fractalized level, so that like the citizens themselves on an individual level are creating like participating in the construction of order and the construction of intelligence, like actionable intelligence in a republican setting, like that type of social organization.
yeah. The thing with those that a really crucial difference though between pragmatism and utilitarianism is that utilitarianism sees the ends as, maybe I would say, the satisfaction of some kind of goal, or this more, I would say, satisfaction of some kind of senses, right? This is how I used to like to look at it. Like the ultimate utilitarian example is the British, kind of like capitalist he's using everything as a tool just to satisfy some kind of like base pleasure or something, right? But with pragmatism, this is how I put it in my Substack. I didn't finish yet, but the basic idea is that for the Englishman, the machine is a tool to realize some ends, right? But for the American, the machine is the ends. The machine is itself the ultimate ends. So with pragmatism, work, things being able to work, um, is the privileged kind of how should I say, expression of the Platonic good. The good is what works, right? So what that basically means is that when it comes to the evil of America, the evil things we associate with United States and America, or the unhappy consciousness of America, so to speak, is this kind of attempt to arrive at a form of sovereign objectivity. Instead of the empiricism of the British, this is this occulted sovereign object of the senses that is this metaphysical absolute. This sovereign objectivity is instead some kind of thing that works, completely indifferent, completely uh, completely alien to humanity, and completely existing on its own terms, right? So we are never arrive at this reconciliation, this harmony
You could say
between,
with pragmatism results in well, I don't really know on this
yeah.
level.
Well,
What's the distinction?
the way I've conceived it is, it's basically, you can just think of it like this: we got rid of the British crown, and then we've been trying to replace and fill the vacuum. And also, this is involving the British elites as well, like, directly. But every
You could say
every
that.
every chapter of the
Uh,
class struggle in America's history is this attempt by our ruling class to replace the British crown, so to speak, and institute, make our pragmatic ambiguity into a sovereign objectivity that exists for itself.
is man is that was what in New England anyway. The Puritans there, they had already replaced the crown. Like these were the people who had executed the king in the English Civil War. You know, this like they had already taken this like there's like an American Revolution before the American Revolution. You know,
Yeah,
in that time where you're talking about the Glorious Revolution. What that really did was set the stage for the American Revolution because when they reorganized the colonies afterwards, which had been effectively abandoned in the period of the Civil War, and like self-governing, they reorganized things and they wanted to impose leadership and direction from London over these like previously autonomous colonies, who were even printing their own currency and things like that. So that was taken away, and they were subject again to the crown. They weren't subject to the crown for decades.
yeah, but you're aware of the thesis it forward in the book, the loyalists, what is it, the loyalist revolution, something like that, where the revolutionaries of the American War of Independence actually began as loyalists, and they actually came to realize, and this was my takeaway, that the current British crown were usurpers. They're not real. They're pretenders to the throne. They don't represent the real, authentic monarchy. So the whole founding of the U.S. Republic was basically like, not to safeguard against the excesses of tyranny, so to speak, that just was from feudalism or from the traditional society, but was a reaction to the horrifying revelation of the fact that, how is there a pretender who's sitting on the throne? This is the only way we can safeguard ourselves from
Or about a
pretenders from ever sitting on the throne again. Like, and by pretenders, I basically am meaning like like from the poems of the English Romantics. Like, what's this poem? The Mask of Anarchy. Who is this? You know, aware of this poem? The Mask of
yeah.
Anarchy. Who is this by again? Well, the Mask of Anarchy was basically like how that the crown represented the, like, exactly its opposite, the anarchy of modernity and the complete usurping of all tradition and rights and customs and history or whatever. Like, the person's, it's almost like the Pope, right? The Pope is the highest representative of Christianity, but then with Protestantism, you have the horrifying revelation that, holy fuck, the Antichrist, that's the Antichrist, right?
It's not even
So
the
it's
first
this,
time they realized that, though, man. That's not the
yeah,
first time.
it's the
Like,
same as, from my perspective, it's the same as how they viewed why the U.S. Republic was founded, not as a monarchy, was because how could it be possible that a usurper, a false pretender, can be a king, right? It's not that they rejected the history of monarchy and all kings in history as illegitimate and false. It's just that here we have an anarchist as king, so to speak. We have the mask of anarchy.
so that's really what it is, and like that's like that the divine right in a way kind of leads directly to global imperial anarchism or whatever. Like who gets this divine right? It then goes down to whoever effectively can wield it, i.e., like make like control nature. Right. This is where you gain your divine right is your ability to exert power, your will onto the world. That's like what distinguishes like divine right from an elective monarchy, right? is an elective monarchy. You don't wield these powers like individually. You've been vested with them by the people. But in a divine right monarchy, the people are irrelevant to you. Like the people are are like good. They're on a list. Like they don't invest you with anything. You are over them. Like you're a god man. This is like the Ubermensch, right? Is to be the divine right monarch.
Yeah, the thing that I always like to emphasize though is that we typically view modernity, so to speak. I know this is a loaded term, and it's not. It's a lot of Suds like to use this word, oh, modernity, but just it simplifies things, right? We like to think of this idea as like first you have the old traditional society, and then you have the modernistic progressive forces who have no regard for tradition and no regard for um, history, and they just decide to from scratch create a new society based on this kind of rationalistic nihilism, whatever. But we've when my study of European history has led me to a very, very different conclusion, which is that this rationalistic nihilism, whatever you want to call it, Satanism, whatever, of modernity that turns the world upside down, this actually happened before the revolutions. First, there was some fundamental corruption of the institution of monarchy, and of religion as well, where you had basically Satanists become the Pope, and you had complete
way back, buddy.
Yeah,
How far back do you
complete
want to go right now?
complete atheistic nihilists become sitting on the throne of, they become the king, right? And revolutionaries come to embody the true return to tradition, so to speak. Like Robespierre with his Republican virtue was an attempt to return to some kind of authentic tradition. And it was actually the king, King Louis XVI, who was the revolutionary in quotations, right? So you have this very, very fundamental. It's a very like confusing dialectic, but it really does make it's a very beautiful irony when you come to realize.
Like once you can see it like in history, like then it just reverberates like everywhere, and it also like helps guide like your ability to research better, I think. Once you're like aware of these sorts of tensions kind of replicating themselves throughout time, then you know what to look for and where to find it, like in any given like situation. So you uncover some pretty interesting stuff this way. Like if you're looking at like the peasant revolts, or like the sort of the quote unquote like heretical like uprisings of peasants in like the Dark Ages and things like this. This sort of like under this like submerged history has this complete continuity to the present, in a way that is actually easier to connect philosophically than I think like the quote unquote like ruling ideology's development in time. Like the ruling ideology is always kind of nonsensical. It's like a cabinet of delusions that have been gone through. That's sort of like what the nightmare of history is. But the truth amongst the people has always been sort of yeah, that's the most Lindy thing in the world is the people.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to me, the very, very ability to have a notion of the people that's divorced from the institution that's meant to instantiate them, for me, that begins with the American Revolution, right? It's just some kind of we the people, and there's a fundamental ambiguity. So many people ask, and they think they're smart, right? Who's her name? Luna Oy. You know who these people on Twitter I beef with. She's just like, oh, you say the people, but which people? Do you mean the trans people or the marginalized or the disabled? But they miss the point that the people in the United States,
that the people exist.
The ambiguity is imminent, right? It's meant to be ambiguous. It's meant not to be loaded with any specific determinate form, because the minute you give it determinate form, you are interpolating a subject through some kind of institution.
This is like all theology to me, though. Like this goes back to like what Compat and I have been obsessed with, which is the problem of universals in Christian hermeneutics, because it comes down to like what the definition of the church was, right? Because you could say the same thing where it's like we're doing this for like Christians and for the church, right? And that's a huge amount of things, right? If you're talking about like Christians or church, what is that? Is the church the exact same church that, like, the Roman church, the institutions, the ones that are subject to this, that agree to XYZ specific charter, the ones that say this creed, the ones that say this? Like, what are the, what, like, how does that develop, like, the church? The universal church, like, basically there was this conception amongst the radical reformationists that there's always a universal church, which is not known to people in time. Like, we do not know who's a member of the universal church, but that this is what the church actually means, is the universal churchhood of believers in eternity, not the any individual instantiation of like an institution around us, but a much larger, like, vaguer, like, metaphysical concept like this. For the same, it works the exact same way with the people. Because if you say for the people, you don't even mean for just the American people, right? Because if you're like an actual populist, then doing things for your own people and, like say, like, eliminating, like, the American empire, that you're also be in the doing this in the best interest of, like, those people. Actually, there's no conflict between self-development and, like, mutual development. Like, it's not a winner take all game. It's not one take, like, to win someone else must lose in this sort of thing. But in a proper, like, educational environment, in this sense, like, in the way Dewey meant in education, everyone trying to manifest themselves, like, the best versions of themselves, they're tempering each other also, and, like, draw that sort of that competition. This is, like, where the positive sense of, like, the competitiveness in America comes from, is this sense of this actually makes everyone better, is that it's not a zero sum game, and you don't have to like, divide everything where it's like, you're playing a game and you see that people with XYZ traits seem to excel at a certain game, and you go like, oh, this game isn't fair to people with who don't have XYZ traits or whatever. That's like what they're doing when they're dissolving the notion of the people. Like, they're eliminating the possibility of having the pretense of, like, a universality that may not prove itself to be, like, universal in outputs, but is universal in inputs.
Yeah, to me, I always like to return to what I consider Marx's monotheistic humanism. And the reason I say it's monotheistic, thank you so much, Voidburn.
Voidborn donated
Appreciate it.
$10. Love these discussions. Thank you so much for having Logo back on. These streams are amazing.
Thank you, Voidburn. Appreciate you. But and the way you have to understand that is that for Marx, what does Marx mean by man? What does he mean by humanity? Does he mean a humanity loaded with certain predefined characteristics and positive quality? What does he actually mean when he talks about humanity and man, right? Well, Marx actually isn't referring... For Marx, he says, if you want to know what humanity is, work, right? Work for humanity and work to discover humanity. But
productivity is man. Like, you could say,
well,
like, this is what it means to say man is the image of God, i.e., those working in, like, productive, like, in the reproduction of the world, like using language and, arts and building
it's
things.
even
like, that's what man is.
Well, it's even deeper than that, because for Marx, there's no premise of man whatsoever. Marx, the word man just refers to this monotheistic view that there is one absolute, there is one kind of point of the metaphysical absolute in which all of this developments of our thinking, specifically in the thinking of philosophy, all of this shares the same essence and is one and the same with ourselves how should I say, with our basis at its lowest base. Like, for example, the most base and menial work of a toiler. This is part of one single object. All Marx is basically saying, in terms of his humanism, is that I don't know what humanity means or what it is, but it does mean something, and it is actually something, right? So man just refers to this fact. Man just means to return the head to its material base. Now, what is that material base? What is the consequences of that? What does that look like? Well, Marx doesn't say this because that comes after. First, you have to accept that there is this reconciliation. There is one universal humanity. Now, again, what this humanity looks like and whatever is besides the point. It's a fundamental commitment to the fact that even if you don't know it, the contradiction between heaven and earth, between head and body, for example, is reconciled as a material object.
See, sometimes it's like I read Marx. I think Engels is better with this. Honestly, I'm like an Engels head right now. Like, I feel like Marx gets too much play. I feel like Engels was actually the major partner in the relationship these days. But sometimes I'm reading Marx and I'm just like, it's like the stone that the builder rejected here, and it's like everything he's saying is just like, yeah, like that's why Jesus Christ existed, where it's like, oh yeah, there is this like immanent absolute which is like best represented by this sort of a person who like works, right, and in working like discovers this truth, and in discovering this truth is crucified by the capitalists of the world, essentially.
Yes,
And
yes.
like it's literally like that's sort of what Engels is getting to at the end, with his like history of early Christianity and like their constant comparisons between them. I think really that so much of the botched nature of like Western Marxists and leftoids is from this their failure to like fully reconcile to like a kind of like radical Christianity, because it completely it completes their vision, and it's already like implicit in a
What
way.
you
And what ends up happening, like the reason why they didn't is because Christianity was actually hegemonic, like this sort of bourgeois Christianity of like metaphors of like debt, right? This sort of Calvinistic sense where Jesus gives you lower interest rates on your loan to the fucking devil, and like and then when you pay off your debt, you're in the elect. That's basically like the metaphor of Calvinism. But that's like, as opposed to like the Great Jubilee, right, of communism, of cornucopian communism.
Yeah, the issue really stems from the fact that people don't, first of all, people don't really appreciate that Marx and Engels, as they say, shared one mind. So if Engels was saying something that seemed like it contradicts Marx or is different from Marx, it's usually because the interpretation of Marx is not complete, right? But when
Absolutely. I just mean like the man was around longer. Like,
Yeah. I think the issue is that many people, I think the more general issue is Philistinism. And by Philistinism, I mean it's this kind of relativization of Marxism to just some kind of like some part of a bigger division of labor. When Marxism is supposed to be like this privileged, fundamentally like Renaissance man type of way of completely connecting the whole division of labor into one form of practice and one method and one kind of relation to universal humanity. So the issue really is that there's a lack of understanding of what religion even is in the first place, right? There was obviously the institution of religion that existed at the time, but the more fundamental religious texture, foundation of religion, was something that Marx and Engels, even Engels himself, despite he was turning from this in his later years, they took it for granted, right? They were never confronted with any kind of challenge to this. But yes, Christianity is not reducible to philosophy, so to speak. It's not
confronted. They were confronted with sort of a radical atheist like skeptics of the time, and who they were like the bourgeois socialists and the utopian socialists, who go on to and the anarchists who go on to produce the system we have now. So,
but the curse is that, though, that even atheists are in a sense Christian in the West, right? It's this more fundamental spiritual texture.
No, well, what I would say is that there's like, so it depends on what you mean by that.
Yeah.
Because I would say that the standard atheist cosmology is actually just deism. Like, is fun. Like, there's like, if you watch like Neil deGrasse Tyson Cosmos or whatever, they'll even be like, you know what? We're actually not even atheists because we're like agnostics. That we do believe that there's the possibility of a deistic God. Which is identical nature anyway.
You have to look at it from the perspective of the division of labor. They'll say these things, right? But they're taking for granted this more fundamental, substantive texture of the Christian religion, right, as the real foundation. So by rejecting Christianity, all they're doing is estranging themselves from having any kind of active or non-alienated relationship to their own kind of, I guess I would call it religious substance, so to speak. Like, I do agree with Marx to this sense that religion is, in a sense, the world. Our world is itself religious, right? Our civilization is itself, in a way, Christian. The question is whether if one is a Philistine, then one is going to occupy one narrow, one-sided part of the division of labor and be blinded from the whole. Whereas if one is a well-rounded kind of Renaissance man or whatever, you're going to really be able to embrace this fact and be able to confront it and be reconciled with it.
Yeah, it's like a really unique thing that biblical literacy is like almost non-existent. It's like gone, which is really kind of strange for America. It's an extremely strange thing to happen to America for that sort of literacy to decline, because it's really founded. Our obsession with literacy was founded on biblical literacy being something that was like kind of necessary even to having like control over yourself in a way. Like this was like a means by which to manifest yourself, so to yourself, like ethically. Like the experience of reading this text it's educative. It creates a type of relation to the world which is more conducive to Republican governance, like in the sense of participatory, actual like commonwealth, like an unalienated like relation to the productive force of the world. That's what the goal for these early settlements was. Like they were communists, like in their time. They had their own problems, but like even in like the Massachusetts Bay Colony, the original charter, they do like a full they go full communism. There is no private property, and eventually they start to legislate away from that. But that is this notion is it's biblical. This notion of communism. That's where it comes from. It comes from people reading and interpreting the laws around property and inheritance and usury and these sorts of things from the Old Testament, like Leviticus and stuff like that. Like this is where these ideas come from.
So what I want to bring up is, speaking of this, is that I struggle with America still. I haven't completely completed the puzzle. I think I'm close, but it's a big problem for me. And when I say it's a big problem, I mean it like this. So in China, you have the Communist Party of China. And what that basically means is that the Communist Party is in power, but there is still this historically partial kind of object, China, which is not reducible. The Communist Party may be in power, someone else may be in power, but China remains. There is this reality of China, this common point of objective unity of the whole Chinese people. It's the coherent point that's the quilting point of an entire civilization. Same is true for Russia. Same is true for other countries. The issue with the United States, of course, is that we don't have that, right? So the Communist Party of the United States is a kind of very strange alchemical mixture. It's almost like you're saying the Communist Party of the communist state. It's like the issue is that communism here, let's just simplify it, means this kind of negation of corresponding to modernity. So the communist China basically means China experiences this fundamental alienation, abstract negation of modernity, and then it has the negation of the negation where it is returned to the original object, China. China remains and survives this. So this is the dialectic, alchemical, whatever formula. But the weird thing going on with the United States that I struggle with is that this is why I introduced the idea of reviving the CPUSA in the first place. It really comes from exactly this. This is the secret of the whole thing. To me, I found it very poetic, and I found something, even if I don't fully understand it, very prophetic even. This idea of the chickens coming home to roost. And the very source of communism, and you know what I mean by communism, right? This abstract leveling process of modernity. Communism returns to its home, and the full consequences of what this abstract negation, quote unquote, of modernity, what even is that? Uh, all of that becomes revealed here, and we have this fundamental internal confrontation where America confronts America. But it's like two negations. What do you get out of two negations? What do you get out of the communist party of the communist state? We don't have the communist party of China or Russia, something else. It's just the United States. The United States already communist in a way from the very beginning, right? So what
effectively like doing the whole like I don't like there has to be the creation of like some sort of a party to destroy all parties in a way, because what I think, if you're saying like things have to return, etc., the real return will be getting Americans to be actually more like fucking Americans. Americans now, like even patriotic Americans, they're like patriots, but they're like, and I love Winston Churchill and Margaret Thatcher. And so it's like, are you really patriots? The Americans are not actually being American enough. They don't know or care enough about our own traditions, and that return will be the real return, because the goal of the American Republic was to not have parties at all.
well
The whole
my
point was that the Congress and the House of Representatives and these sorts of bodies, this was the party. Like the government was identical to the party. Like there is one, and it's one party, and it's all the people in the states.
what my worry though is that is America only defined by this kind of negation of, in a way, civilization? Like, isn't America only defined by this constant negation of all stable traditions and so on? Like, what is our sovereign point of objectivity for our country? Like, what is really
It's defined by
America?
that negation. I don't think like in that sense. I really don't, because America, even in the like if you're looking for a country that's like a pure, like, or as close as possible to that pure negation, you'll find it in like Sweden and like and London, you know. This is the real place where there's just what is the Swedish tradition? Do you like do you not feel that like the Swedes in a way are more abstract in this sense, like are the land of IKEA? Like are they not actually
They,
further on this than we are?
well, in a sense, you can say they are. They're a hyper-reflexive society, but still, they have an object of Sweden and its history and Sweden's civilization, and there's something there. It just has to do with their peculiar perversion of, in my view, the Protestant Christianity in Sweden that leads them to the IKEA, the IKEA Swedes that hover over the world in this. They're kind of like space aliens, right? But the issue with
The
me
next
is,
project.
yeah, the issue to me is like, here's how I would put it, is that we don't have a common, we don't have a sovereign. We don't have a sovereign that historically united American civilization into one people. We are not yet one people here in the United States, if that makes sense, right? Like China, for
Supposed to be that.
example, had its various dynasties. Russia had its czars. Europe had its kings. Um, Middle East or whatever, they have their sultans or their emirs or whatever. We like, how should I put it? What was I gonna say? Fuck.
I mean, because it's like who's Lincoln? Like that's what
Yeah,
Abraham Lincoln
yeah.
was. Like that's what, to like a titanic figure, and like why the assassination of Lincoln is like spells the rest of like the tragedy of American history unfolding after that, and kind of the death of the Second Republic, that Lincoln is trying
I
to
Yeah.
herald.
I guess what I would try to say is, this is, I read this in the chat. This is exactly what I mean. We don't have really a civilization here. By civilization, here's what I mean. Civilization, as I would define it, is when you have both the state, you have some kind of harmony between a state and the material base outside the state in the form of the people. The people in their telluric, earthly existence, come to an understanding with the state, and this mediation produces a civil society, right? But United States to me it's pretty much the it's the caricature of the anti-communist that they make of like communist countries. It's like one universal state that has no regard for the earthly reality of its people, and if you come into there's no like civil society here. It's just here's the state and then chaos. You know what I mean? So
Sure, there's actually a mediating figure in American literature there. The Native Americans.
Interesting. Elaborate.
Native Americans are not, they're like this idea that like there was like anti-Native American racism or something like that, this like a purely eugenics, like ethno anthropological, like rational disdain or whatever is not the case at all, because the Native Americans were always like they've had a huge influence on the way we organized our society here, and they were always that mediating figure, because they were in the anarchy of nature, and the ambiguity was like, what is their form of order? And if you're saying, like you were talking about the Mongols earlier, right? Well, that's closer to like what the Native American societies were like, and that's always like from the beginning, it was like, how do we merge with the Native Americans? Like, how do we become one thing, like as Americans? That's like the question. That's like why you have like Hiawatha, like Longfellow, the Longfellow poem, like these things, they're like American Republican things. And we have this sort of civic mythology in which the Native American plays an extremely important role in legitimizing things as being from like authentically from the land and the people, which is why like land back, etc., has been so necessary by the NGO plex to for them to monopolize that brand space, because like everyone kind of authentically recognizes that the Native Americans have like the most authentic relation to this land. But in a sense, like the American communism would be to like we all become Native Americans.
That's actually very interesting. Um, huh.
Like we are all the people. Like this idea, like I'm a Native American. Like my family's been here for God knows how long. Like, am I a Native American? This is what the nativists were saying, right? The know nothings and things like that. They would actually describe themselves as Native American. Yeah, and this was like a patriotic thing, even like a jingoistic, chauvinistic thing in some sense, to claim yourself to be a Native American. I mean, you can see that fucking Pocahontas does it, Elizabeth Warren. But I mean it in a not like in that sort of like cringe, like using it for like I was so oppressed and status thing, but more as like an aspirational thing. Like that's like also I think what is sort of wrong. Like, the Redskins or whatever as the football team is being considered as like a derogatory or something. No, it's like an aspiring thing. It's like these were people that like America wanted to replicate in a way. Like it wasn't this like I don't know, some aspects of like a patriarchal or a condescending attitude towards the Native Americans, but I don't know. I think much deeper, like the American mythology. The Native Americans are like they're not they're not represented as like usually as like reprehensible and like below civilization, but as like an admirable enemy. Like as like a worthy foe.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other things I was thinking about too was that this is really the big issue, is that if the whole United States is a project, as the opponents of patriotism, whatever, allege, was one big Frankenstein monster. It's just one big mistake, one big catastrophe. There's no substance to America. There's no object of America. It's one continuous artificial creation that will never have a civilization and will never have any roots in the land. It's one completely failed, meaningless catastrophe. For me, the question then is, is this not a fundamentally nihilistic insight? Isn't that mean? What does that
Oh,
mean
it
for
is.
humanity as a whole? That's actually what really kind of pushed me away from my more anti-American stance I had like a year ago, which was not anti-American in the woke sense, but I was very skeptical of the idea of an American state. I just didn't know, right? I was like, how could this be possible? But what pushed me
Well, I
away
think
from
it
it
would
was
look
that
different.
when I started to like see what these people were filling the vacuum with, and it was just this rancid, utter nihilism. I realized, like, hold on, okay, you aren't at peace with America yet. Do you still have to work? America has more up its sleeve because
America's
you're
beautiful. America's great. Like I
well.
love
What I
this
mean by
country.
that is it's
You
like
know?
yeah, no, I understand. It's like what I mean by that is like they're engaging in a kind of foreclosure. They're foreclosing the very source of the ground of their own subjectivity, and then just declaring that they won. Like, oh yeah, we defeated America. No, you haven't defeated America. You're still fundamentally relying on a very narrow part of America. And that's really our ruling class. You're taking that and their relationship to the people as the foundation. And you're running away from the material basis of what America is. And you want to seal the deal and be done with it and close that off forever. And my perspective is no, America has more up its sleeve. There's more to this country. There's more to the people of this country than the institutions that claim to represent them, right? So that has been my point. But the reason I don't like being backed, the reason I'm having such trouble being backed into this corner by Twitter lefties, is that I still have a lot of doubt. I still have a lot of ambiguity where it's like I do always think like what really is the future then? What does this mean? What is America? I still don't even really know, right? All I know is that they're wrong. That's all I know is that these people are evil and wrong. But
Well, I would say this is what America is America is they're not in charge of what America is. They are alienated from it. They're the furthest people from it. They're the most alienated from it. They couldn't see it if you gave it to them. If you showed it to them, they wouldn't tell you that's what it is. They have no appreciate like they have no like they're not attached to this. If anything, their sense of self is like mediated through the internet, and it's mostly mediated through relation to Europe, right? And specifically to Northern Europe, and specifically even more so, they measure everything compared essentially to Sweden, right? Sweden, do you know this? When you look at like those things where it's like Human Rights Watch, like Liberty Meter, etc., and they do these metrics, most of the time they're just measuring how close you are to Sweden. Sweden will have the top marks.
yeah. I know Sweden is a big it's hell, right?
It's
But
the eye in the triangle, man. You don't understand. Like it's Sweden. Sweden is low key is man. I don't know where to start because Sweden has this like incredible occulted history of like Hyperborean intrigue being like the mediating figure between the British Empire and the Russian Empire in like the Baltic. And oh my god, dude, like it's fucking I don't know where to start with this stuff, but I don't know, no one cares about Swedish history. It's like once you see it and you're like, wait a minute, the Swedes, what is going on there? Like what have they been doing this whole time? Like why do they give out the Nobel Prize? Like wait, they weren't involved in World War I or World War II. Like what were they doing like the whole time? They made money on both of those. They built all this
I've never
infrastructure.
actually
They've
thought
never
about
had a
that.
war. They've never been invaded. Nothing's ever happened to them. They've just only grown, and like they're invested in like everything. They tried to do colonialization, but they couldn't quite do it. So all they did was invest in every other colonial enterprises, like corporations. So they made money on everyone's imperialism the whole time. Like it's incredible.
Yeah, I never thought about that actually.
They're
Um
like the key Masonic lodges too. It's fucked.
that's actually
Leeds, man.
really
Greta
interesting.
Thunberg. Now think about Greta Thunberg. Like why is she around? She's fucking royalty.
Really?
Her fam? Oh man.
Jesus.
Like
Yeah,
the
I mean,
aristocracy intrigue, the ancien regime is not gone. Like it's not. It's up in the this is like what I've been realizing more and more. This is like the horror of you should watch this show Ares, Ares. It's a Dutch show about this sort of thing, but it's like closest thing to like a Cthulhian horror that I experience is looking into like things like the Swedes, because they have never had a revolution. There's never been a revolution in Sweden.
That's true, actually. That's actually true.
Continuity. It's the
How
ancient
big
regime.
is
They
Sweden's
are the
population?
ancient regime.
Sweden population. They're 10 million. They're not that big though.
Because it's a eugenic society, right? Like basically this is like where this whole notion, right, of like this sort of hyperborean theosophical worldview where like the higher races are the ones closer to the North Pole. Gee, I wonder who came up with that. Um, it's That's where it all comes from, man. And if you look at Europe and you imagine a sort of like pyramid with the Baltic like operating, you know, like the Eye of Providence sort of thing. Sweden fits that sort of figure. It's like right there, and their goal basically was for Sweden to be like the select, like the cream of the crop of the hereditary aristocracies that would then rule over the lower races of like the Germans. You know, they're like, no, they're like, well, the Germans, they're not Swedes. They're a little swarthy too, but you know, that's that's how it works, because it's all this relation to like the Vikings. The Vikings are another key, I think, the key figure for Western history, especially in the Northwest, like Anglophone history, which we don't appreciate. Is how you're talking about the Mongols being like that sort of world historical shift to modernity. I was going to say the Vikings are, because the Vikings were just a pure like they were the first. They were like they were like a financial oligarchy. They were like a lumpen proletariat empire.
Yeah,
That's all they did.
they did play the role of nomads in Europe, it seems like.
They just raided things, and they were the ones to really come up with the divine right of kings, right? You know, the right like this conquest right in like the Danelaw and this sort of shit.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I never really thought about Sweden or anything like that, but I'll keep that in mind. That's really interesting. But
No, but it's a big deal because they create the dialectics that lead to like our current like the like this is a do you ever hear of like Mitchell Heisman, the guy he wrote Suicide Note,
no,
killed
no.
himself, like this guy he lived in Cambridge, he was like a grad student, looks really smart guy, wrote this like 1,000-page book about the history of the world, and then killed himself with like a copy of it in Harvard, like on the square. I've read most of it, but he goes really deep into this. But the dialectics that existed in like the early British Isles, right? You first have like the Anglo-Saxons invade like these Gaelic tribes, and then you have the Normans invade, and then at that point, like, so you have these Gaelic tribes now sort of identifying with the Anglo-Saxons, and they're like, we're like Englishmen now, right? Against like the Norman yoke. And this is the sort of beginning of like trying to like get back to the original state of like Gaelic sort of tribal nomadic freedom is sort of baked that.
Huh, that's yeah, I mean, no, yeah, urban Maoism has told me about that. He told me about the Norman pill, so to speak.
Big man, you know more about French stuff than I do. I've realized just by talking. Like people
I
call
just
me.
know about the French school in the 20th century, but that's really it. Like France,
I
I
know
know.
more French revolutionary history than I do. I'm not that interested in it. I don't know why. It just doesn't interest me that much.
Really, wow, interesting. I do mainly because of the ideological background. Like that's the beginning of the so-called left and revolutions, so to speak of, right? But
Just like, I don't know, there's a sense I've always had, like being an American. I guess I'm like old school American, where I'm like, what does fucking Europe have to do with me? Like, I don't give a fuck about what they're doing. Like, I don't care. I like want like the whole point of America is to like not give a shit about Europe anymore. Like, we're doing our own thing, in my opinion, right? Like, it's always been perpetually annoying to me when people are like take like Europe as like the model of sophistication, because like I meet all these Europeans and they're just like they're fucking like college kid Americans. They have like it's like they're just like oh god, it sucks.
I want to ask you a
It's
question.
an American now.
I had a newfound interest in David Lynch for a few weeks before a week ago when I realized my psychosis was reaching its limit. But um, to me, David Lynch is like probably the most important American artist that's living right now, beside in the field of film. He is, to me,
Up there.
quintessentially American. He's a pragmatic. He represents American pragmatism. Like, doesn't have to make sense. It just has to work, right? What? But what is?
I mean, I don't think
yeah.
that's that true of his process. Actually, I think he's actually like I think that he portrays himself as like working from intuitions and these sorts of things. But I don't believe him for a second. I know that trick, and he is a very deep like symbolist, and he plans everything meticulously in what he's doing.
Really?
His if yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. His stuff, he's very much informed by some specific like kind of like new thought, like sort of mystical stuff. I mean, that he's like really involved in transcendental meditation and stuff like that. But a lot of his work comes from reading this sort of literature of like the weird like new agey sort of stuff in America and California, especially in since like the 60s and earlier. I mean, he deals a lot with like secret societies and stuff like that. He's not like he knows what symbols he's using to and deploying for like specific reasons, like the in Twin Peaks, right? It's not like a coincidence that it's like red curtains and like a checkerboard floor, like that is a Masonic symbolism. He's from like a deep, dense, like old school, like Masonic area in California and shit too, if I recall correctly.
I can see that too. His stuff scares his Twin Peaks, The Return, especially that one. That has profoundly scared me the most out of anything I've ever consumed media wise, because its proximity to dreams has like been a part of my own struggle with psychosis in a sense. Like, there's something that I just feel is true about where it's coming from, that this is all a dream, and there's something wrong with our reality, so to speak, right? And I remember from Fire Walk with Me when it's like when Philip Jeffries, you know what I'm talking about? When he walks into the FBI station and Cooper's looking on camera to see him, and he walks past him, and then they have this really weird moment, and then all of a sudden he's gone, right? And him and Lynch remember him. It's like I relate to that a lot for some reason, because it's like it's just this weird sense of deja vu. I don't know. Like something can happen and then not happen at the same time. That makes sense.
Happen. No way, like things just disappear, like and no one will believe you if you're like, where did that? There was a thing here and now it's gone.
Yeah.
It's Jack from the Perfume Nationalist always like to compare the American reality to like a soap opera in that way, or like specifically, I think he talks about this one season of maybe Dallas or something, but it turns out like the whole season is just a dream, and like everything that happened in it is like retconned, and it just like disappears. That type of like television pacing, like like where the narrative, right? The narrative that's being told in this story has to make these sort of indescribable jumps and leaps through like a kind of like just like you just have to jump with it or not. There's no explanation. And it's always from like economic concerns or from like concerns that are in these like boardroom deals. And that's the same with like the story we tell in like the news cycle, where it's like, yeah, so that was a thing and it was real and we're all talking about it. But now we're not, because, it's been ordered that we don't talk about it, but we act as if we've all decided to not talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
But it's been disappeared on us. It was taken away from us.
So I know that you strike me as more of like very much metaphysically frugal, if I should say. Like, you don't like to be very speculative or like make this venture into this bullshit, like supernatural stuff, but in Twin Peaks and from other Lynch's work, I can't help but get the feeling like if he really is knee deep in occultism and symbolism, right? Um, is there a certain point where it's like, do these people really do believe in some kind of, I don't know if I call it a supernatural power, but just a fundamentally different view of how time and space work? And are they
It's
right?
it's it's just, well, I mean, you could, if you say they're like, saying they're right gets you a lot in this world. It's a good bargain to make to with the devil, right? The gods of
Yeah.
this world. You get a lot for it. You'll get riches. You'll get everything. Like, so are they right? Like, because following their path, it might bring you riches. It might,
Yeah.
you get a lot out of it. There's a lot to gain materially, but what is lost like spiritually,
Well, I just
right?
mean to say, like, from a pragmatic perspective, like, is what they're doing, does it work? Like, are they actually experiencing reality, something real in a way that's different from the rest of us? Like, do they have insight into some supernatural reality we don't have?
No, no, not at all. Not couldn't cultivate, like, not that it's nothing. Nothing is like, they're not gaining anything. Like, this notion that people get this sort of mystical, gnostical, like, revelation of like an outer realm, like on DMT and
Yeah.
blah 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 or whatever. This is all bullshit. Like, nothing that they've gotten or ever gleaned isn't just like found in a book somewhere, already written down and like already a cliche, even. So yeah, I don't think that they're tapped into the higher order of things. I think David Lynch is a great artist. I think he's a great formalist. I think he's tapped into a lot of that sort of that underside of America, which is obviously like included with his interest in like secret societies and things like that. That's a big part of American history. And he shows off a lot of his knowledge of this history like in his work. A lot of people, like critics who are less literate in these things, right? They just go like, wow, look how wacky and random like these things are. But like, there's nothing wacky and random David Lynch has ever done. He's like meticulously purposeful.
Huh. Um, that's interesting. I don't know.
Bothers
At
me
at
that
a
the way
certain
people
point,
think of
where
artists.
do you begin to kind of like do you depart from any like scientific realism? Do you think modern science has it all under control, so to speak, or
I think no, I think that we have like part of the problem with
like what
America
do you
right
think would be
now.
the most like speculative and daring view of reality you have?
Most speculative and daring thing is always to be a Christian, like authentically, like to actually mean it. Like, because you can say these things like, and they've sort of become cliches and people say them without really knowing what they mean. But I really do believe in like, I believe, and it's not even like an intellectual
Yeah.
like axiom or like a presupposition or something. Like, it's an undeniable reality that in my life that I perceive like every moment.
So for
So I
you,
can't, it's not, there's no separation to me between like a like speculative fancy and the reality. Like, I think that like authentically, if you really engage with the Christian tradition and like the hermeneutics of like biblical irony and like dialectics and like these sorts of things that emerge from reading the Bible like over and over and over again by so many people over generations, apply this to like history, so many different levels of things, just yields so many insights in a way that like you could just say this could be like the first baptism, you could say, right, where you go like, wow, this method, this sort of thing is interesting, and it could be pragmatic and useful, right, and like you can still have this sort of gap from it. But then like, I don't know, for me there was just like a few moments of like an actual just like fucking perception that there was no gap, that like like it's already like it's real, like it's not a precept or like even like just a small mere metaphor, like a guide or a model or whatever, but it's like identical to reality.
but even beyond, for example, history and the understanding of human history, do you think when you say you're a Christian, do you also accept all of the kind of let's just say metaphysical depth of that. Like, for example, that there is this has a consequence not just for our world of discourse and meaning and rationality and so on, but it refers to something outside, like of inherent to being itself. Like, there's something about nature itself that is correctly understood by Christianity.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that it like accurately describes the world.
Interesting. Yeah, my view
That
is the
like
same. My view is pretty much the same. Like, if science is in contradiction with this fundamental wisdom you derive from the hermeneutic, then science
this
is
is a
wrong. Then not the
uh
hermeneutic.
the Enlightenment tried to eliminate the category of revelation that has existed in like all systems of conceptions of psychology and like humanity for eternity, really. Like almost no one to deny the possibility or the reality of revelation is something that is very modern. And I almost would like want to equate it to like the great apostasy, like pre-told in like Revelations itself, that this is sort of like a true, like the rejection of revelation and a rejection of like truth in that real sense into a world of like satanic wills and just energies.
Um. So I don't know. Like, what about this Christian view of Satan? Do you think that there's any reality to this beyond like subjective experience or whatever? Like, do you think there is a real force of evil?
I do think there is like a real evil in the world, and I do think that it's manifest. It's like it's something. It actually is created by like faith. It's created by like what you could like what like psychic energy. Like people talk about like egregores or whatever. If you read these sort of like chaos magic type guys that Nick Land and whatnot get into, like thought bodies or bodies in the noosphere or whatever. These sort of transcendental entities that aren't like visible, but you can sort of feel acting in the world. I think this is true. Like this is what like a corporation is too, right? Where it's like, where is Coca-Cola? But like where is like the body of Coca-Cola? Like this entity that takes up so much space and has its like tendrils everywhere. I think this is a way of seeing the world. I think it's you have to see sort of like in four dimensions, I guess, to see like the tendrils of such things. But like I do see in this way. Like I can this is sort of I think what some people with the term psychogeography and stuff in the 90s 2000s. But like if you have like a better knowledge of this sort of like history and like the development of a place and time, your relation to it, like when I walk around a city, I can see things that other people can't see, and those things are there even though they can't see them, if that makes sense. So like the reality of like of evil in that sense, in like a kind of transcendental sense, is real even if people don't see it.
Um,
World.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, so kind of shifting gears a little bit. What do you so we've been seeing the rise of this so-called Marxism Leninism with woke characteristics very recently, and I think I've actually converted a lot of people into that religion myself. A lot of people who were liberals or calling themselves anarchists have suddenly begun to identify as Marxist Leninists just to contrast themselves to me, right? Because I brought out this primary contradiction. Um, what?
So they're just
So
gonna yes, great.
yeah. So what do you think? What do you think is the source of this big shit going on? Because I struggle to understand it. I mean, there's a lot of I go on Twitter and I just see like a bunch of hate against me a lot, and I just and I see some of the hate against you, but we're talking here like thousands and thousands of people. So I'm struggling to understand like I don't know. I just feel disappointed because I don't know how to. I don't know how to be the thing that they're making me into that they hate so much. It's like even I don't. Even I, a person who hates them, don't really think it's that deep. You know what I mean? Yeah, I struggle to really be worthy of the hatred they're giving me.
It's like, if anything, you should just take that as like you're actually doing something meaningful, because that's like there would be no reaction if there was no if there wasn't a truth. Like, basically the internet is kind of it's like a machine that's trying to eliminate truth. If you think about this, like, all of these people are they're on there to enforce their group collective psychoses that they have developed together. And like, they create this sort of a comic book world that they keep alive through their collective role playing and LARPing, right? And if you go in there the board over and you tell them that, like, what they're playing a game that, like, isn't real, then they freak out and they don't like that and they want you out of the club, because everyone there is LARPing, and, like, you're supposed to be in there LARPing because that's what you're supposed to do online. So if you stop LARPing, people can tell. For instance, let's look like Kyle Rittenhouse, right? This happened. All of the based in red pill, the like white nationalist type guys or whatever, they're like, this is our guy. Where, Sonoran Kyle, he's going in, he's like taking down the lower races, and he's presaging the race war or whatever when we resurrect glorious Hyperborea and become more like Sweden. And then he goes on Tucker and he's like, yeah, I'm not racist. I support BLM. This had nothing to do with race. Like, at the end of the day, the kid shot 3 fucking white anarchists. It's kind of funny. And they were all disappointed. And they were like, I prayed for this kid. Like, he's dead to me now, etc. Why is that? Because he broke their plaything. He stopped LARPing with them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just
say fuck America, burn it all down. Like, you weren't LARPing. Like, you were being realistic. You were being pragmatic. You were saying, like, you can't actually, like, how could you be a socialist without saying you, like, love the people, like the country that you're in or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, how is that even possible? That's a true thing, and that's something that actually makes sense if you were trying to do something in the world. If you were just trying to LARP, like, you're ruining everyone's fun.
So basically, you think all these people are just LARPing, and that I'm ruining the game for them?
Yeah, it's just a game. It's not real. They're live as, like, revolutionaries, and then they go and do whatever they normally do. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean,
it literally means nothing.
This thing that's going on with the Communist Party is actually taking off. Like, Joe Sims is flying around the country, meeting with chapters, trying to, like, give speeches about me and Caleb, and we have them in a panic. They're extremely on lockdown mode.
Because their handlers are like, yeah, we don't do that.
Yeah, I want to know, like, how far can I take this without getting the negative attention of their handlers? Like, if they are really being controlled by the government, like, have I done something very dangerous? It's something I kind of worry about now, like.
Yeah, that's what's gonna happen. Look at Fred Hampton. What happened to Fred Hampton? Like, what happens to people who actually do shit in this country? This is why Christianity, man. Like, what does it mean? Like, what happens?
Do you think some of the Twitter stuff is artificial? I don't. That's something I was wondering too. Like, because it only started happening after the party came to blows with me.
Absolutely, there's forums. There's tons of, like, accounts that exist to
it's so just weird,
like, flood and do that. Yeah, no, I know people.
The reason I find it weird is because, like, I can understand if it happened once that I go viral with thousands of tweets hating on me. But I see multiple tweets about me, screenshots of me, like, they get up to 10,000 likes consistently after I started to be openly hostile with the leadership of the CPUSA. It's a really weird coincidence. I have no idea where that's coming from. I didn't even know that there was that many, like, Marxist-Leninists in the U.S. Like, it's like, how many of these people are there?
To continue. It's not real, man. These things are controlled. Like, the internet, these like little tribes, mimetic tribes, these things are designed to be the replacement for what used to be our insane asylum system. I'm not even kidding. Like, that's what the point is. You got these people, you got mentally ill people, you got them locked down, you keep them in these, like, corrals, you got them, like, living in this fantasy world, you keep the LARP going, and then you can mobilize them to do various things. This is something that was done and studied. This is like it's a means of population control. It's rolled out across the entire country, and at this point, I don't think the real thing that I think is happening to America right now is that the people who created these programs are like the confluence of all of the different people trying to create these propaganda programs and population control programs, is that they've all come together and now they can't undo it, and they don't know how to make it stop anymore.
So
because it's not even being productive for their own ends.
So I do think there's a lot of like authentic hostility and hatred to me. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to sweep that under the rug, but I just wonder, like, thousands of, you know what I mean? Like, is that all real? Is that all like actual people, or is it bots? Because I don't know, consistently thousands, just like, wow, that's, I think I know the government's smart how they do that shit, where it's like something goes viral and it's a feedback loop, and then people actually do become invested because they think that there's something here behind this, but in reality it's nothing. I mean, I didn't even know that there was this many Marxist Leninists in America. I didn't even know that there's like literally, thousands of these people that have their attention on me, that are Marxist Leninists.
Simple, but there's not. But yeah, that's just how it is.
So is this really like, so the government has taken note of me then, and that this is their response pretty much?
Of them, man. I tried to tell you, but the CPUSA,
I don't want to poke the beehive too much, but I feel like the government has to do a way better job, because although it was really annoying to me and it was pissing me off.
The CPUSA has been cut out for like how many fucking decades, man? Like, it's not a real place. It's not a real party. It's another one of these containment chains. But
I really just want to see.
Are those people doing anything?
But I want to see. Yeah, but I want to see. I want to see how far I can take it, though. I want to see if, like, I want to basically test the waters. I want to know the exact limits. You know what I mean? Of like how far this can actually be taken. At what point do I have to give up? Right? Because the way that I think of it is that before you exhaust the limit, you don't know what the limit is. You have to get there first.
Like said.
But I don't know. It just, I struggle to understand why they are so popular on Twitter but nowhere else. That makes sense. Like, why is it? I feel like it has to be at least partially artificial. I feel like this is how I think about it psychologically. When we see,
why does Twitter exist? Why does it exist?
No idea.
Yes.
Your mic's kind of cutting out.
Twitter exists.
I have no idea. No idea.
Twitter. How do any of these corporations exist? Like, how does Facebook exist? Like, how do any of these things exist?
I know the background around Facebook, but I don't know anything about Twitter.
The whole point was to foment revolutions in North Africa by giving all of these people these phones so that you could track all of their like social media posting and things like that, and then you could direct those people with people on the ground and out, because you have the whole network topology of it. It's a surveillance, and it's also one for gathering data. That's why Twitter's free, because you're giving away data, and it's there. People are mapping it, and they're using these maps, and when they end up, that's the whole point. So, yeah, that's like you like they can just send a fucking host of antibodies out if that's how it works. Like, there's people monitoring these things.
I feel like sometimes the government does succeed in psychologically manipulating me, but only temporarily, like only for a day or two, and then I return back. So I kind of feel like I really want to see, like, what is the best they have in terms of their psi weapons, because I'm not really impressed by what they're doing so far.
It's not even that there has to be like a directed thing. It's that everyone is deputized to do this, if that makes sense. Like replicating the system's logic, just like on their own. It's emergent in a way. So you have like, there's, because a lot of those things are probably like just like people acting as enforcers, right? Like, why does
But
anyone
don't
care
you think
about any
there is
tweet?
an element to this where, I understand the herd dynamic. A bunch of individuals form a herd, and then the herd in terms has a specific impression on individuals. But that's where you can have artificial manipulation because when you if you're let's say you're just some random guy, right? You don't really assume the full force of power of being a mob. First, you see what the herd is saying. Like, let's say you open up YouTube. What would you see? You see ContraPoints and Vaush and Destiny. You're like, oh, those are the people that concentrate a bunch of attention on them. That's the other. Those are like, that's where it's happening. I'm just some random individual, right? Well, who am I? And I feel like it's the same thing. Like, let's say they just boosted these tweets to like 10,000 artificially, and then you're just some random dude who sees the tweet and is like, oh, it's got 10,000 likes. Let me give it a like. You know what I mean? Like, that's how these feedback mechanisms work. I think
Yeah, no, they do that. That's why also like they like there's not an open policy on these metrics. Like the it's actually very occulted, and more so over time. Like for instance, like them getting rid of the appearance of like dislikes or whatever because government videos are getting all mass downvoted and things like that because no one likes
that's
Joe
also
Biden.
what happened to the CPUSA's videos. Their last two videos were so downvoted to oblivion. Like, and their comments were just all hostile. And then I went and saw that the dislikes were removed, and I was like, wow, this is convenient.
No, the thing is that like you're presenting what our system is designed to destroy, right? That's effectively what you want to do, right? Because you're saying, right, like Chinese communism like better than here,
Yeah.
or like has to be, there needs to be like a revolution effectively. That you're not an anti-Stalinist leftist. You're not totally reconcilable to the IMF and the World Bank. Blah 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 blah. You're not going to play ball with like the normal electoral politics. You don't want to go in with the Democrats or whatever. Or at least these
I
are the
think
things you're
that's
saying you're
probably
standing for, right?
I think that's probably why they find me, if they are even paying attention to me, the biggest threat is I am really going all in on third parties, or a third party. And specifically, I think it's going to be the People's Party, right? But that's what I hope. That's what I
Yeah,
want
that's
to.
the number one thing. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
You can be hyper anarchist. You can be a fucking
Anything.
a minor attracted person advocate, a narco transhumanist who wants to eliminate
Oh,
90% of the population.
besides the minor thing, that's where I draw the line. We don't want any of those people. Come on.
I'm saying even that is totally reconcilable with the system. You know what I mean?
With the
like
system.
that person.
Yeah.
That person. Yeah.
I thought you meant like the People's Party will accept.
Oh no no no
Okay,
no
okay.
no 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 no
Okay.
no, that's not what I meant.
Good.
What I meant was like in the eyes of the system, like all of these things are perfect. Like that person fits in actually pretty perfectly well. That's not even like
with the system.
revolutionary.
Yeah, I agree.
That's actually the total. Yeah, if you're repeating back like the sort of thing.
Dude, yeah, dude. I was gonna be like, yo, dude, we can't have pedos in the People's Party. Come on,
no, of course, fucking
yeah.
no.
I mean, like, look, we can have libertarians, we can have right wingers, we can even have liberals, we can have progressives, we can have anyone but that. That's where we have. I think the most important
thing. I think the most important thing is actually just like for instance, Virginia, right? I'm like obsessed with Ethiopia right now, but Ethiopian Americans totally swung the election in Virginia by not voting for Democrats.
I heard about that. They swung it red because of Biden's.
My whole thing is, I think that the uniting thing should just be like religion, like basically, because basically the problem with the Democrats are fucking the party of atheism. That's what it is. It's the party of meaninglessness. It's of cafeteria. Pick whatever you want. Who fucking cares? And ultimately, the only religion it does uphold is Satanism. It's constantly defending Satanism, constantly defending the Church of Satan, constantly saying that like any sort of like occultism is actually really cool and based, etc. And like this is hyper alienating to religious people, obviously, right? Like what the fuck? Duh. Like why wouldn't it be? Like if you believe in like the reality of like these sort of nefarious forces, the people who worship them, like I don't know, you're not gonna think that they're like on your side, right? like I think that's like why I was drawn to the Republicans anyway. Like way earlier, it had much more to do with me realizing that that I like it was more of like a spiritual thing. Like I was like the Democrats are fucking like the Republicans are satanic in another way, but like the average Republican is they're just like they have a more like evangelical worldview where they take something like the Antichrist very seriously, for instance, right? And that's sort of like been a rallying thing, right? Is like people being like, no, I won't, like I don't like I hate the Antichrist, right? Like this meme, that is that's not a leftist meme, right? But it's also not like a right wing meme, say, right? Like what is it?
Well, what I've been thinking about is that America's evangelical or Protestant, whatever culture is, it has a very specific millenarianism and apocalypticism, where the apocalypse is always around the corner, but apocalypse is not paradise. Apocalypse is just this complete, arbitrary, and almost meaningless, just annihilation.
Oh,
Think about our
you
fascination
read
with
Revelation. What does it actually say in the book of Revelation? What is the apocalypse?
no idea, but it's for
You got to
America.
read it. Engels would tell you to read it. Engels and Marx said it was the most revolutionary book in the Bible. It definitely
For
is.
Americans though, it's nuclear Armageddon, right? It's just this thing that happens and our whole society collapses and everything's gone, which means none of it was even meaningful in the first place. At least
What it is the renovation of the world in fire, right? So the world, like, and you could say this is what Blake carries. What the fire is are these like the revolutions that spread across the world. This is the Christian apocalypse. Like we live in these times.
like the
Like the
only
world is
reason
on
we
fire.
Americans put up with strip malls and our boring society and all the dumb shit that we have in this country, McDonald's, whatever, we only put up with it because we think there's going to be an apocalypse that's going to wipe away everything and set everything right? But it's not going to happen now. It's going to happen later, right? It's going to happen. It's always something that's going to happen. But this is what allows us to bask in
That's the
sin.
futurist. So there's different ways of interpreting revelation in the Bible, right? So what you're talking about, that would be the futurist interpretation, right? Where the apocalypse is this thing, but it's in the future. It's not going to be something I see. It's not something I have to live with or deal with. But
Well, it
it's
always
going to
has this
be
like
in the future.
it always has this sense of not immanence with an A, but imminence. Like it's just about to happen. It's just around the corner, and we have this anxiety that it's just going to happen soon.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of the thing. Like, if you have a futurist interpretation of it, then you have this anxiety, and you're trying. This is like where some Christian theology comes up with the conception of like the restrainer or whatever, where it's like it could
Yeah,
always be come.
the
Yeah,
catacon.
catacon. Yeah,
Catacon, yeah.
but more of like the radical Reformationist flavor, and I think that the apocalypse is a good thing, and that it's always happening, and we're in the middle of it. And we also know where it ultimately ends, because if we're in the middle of it and we know what that is, then like we know what the end is too. And the end is basically the triumph of the good in eternity, right? Is the world's reformed in fire, and we bring about the new life.
Yeah. I always like to say it's already happened.
We're in a post-apocalyptic society. I don't think so.
Well, I like the idea
so.
that it's already happened. It's very Hegelian to me, like
that is the interpretation that Marx and Engels take too, because that's what's called the preterist interpretation. And the preterist interpretation is that that all the events in the book of Revelation have already happened, and they describe like the reign of Nero. But that isn't what the evangelical or like the more radical like Anabaptist, like Hussites and these types of people through history interpreted it.
Yeah.
Because that same interpretation, like if you say it happened in the past, then the Pope isn't the Antichrist.
Ah. Interesting.
Jesuits came up with these two readings, the futurist and the preterist reading, during the Reformation as part of the Counter-Reformation, because they couldn't actually contest with Protestant interpretation of Revelation, if it was a unfolding event that was happening in our own times and not something to be put off into the future or had already happened.
But what room is there then for reconciliation? Like, if it's always happening all the time, when does it end, so to speak?
At the end, man, in the last judgment, man. Day, no one knows the day or the hour when that is, but we do know what happens, and we can see it happening.
So
Coming
reality is one continuous apocalypse then, until the
That's
end
the
of
whole
days.
point. The point is that the reality is the apocalypse, i.e., like the unveiling or the revelation, the unveiling of to it himself through creation. Like we are the word of God. Like this is and it's a coherent expression in the entirety of time or whatever.
Don't you think that can be kind of reconciled with the preterist view in a way that, for example, reality is one continuous apocalypse, but we can only ever experience it after it has disclosed itself in this way. It does the apocalypse is disclosed anew. It's not only one revelation, it's many revelations across history.
Yeah, but that's part of Revelation. In fact, like the thing is, you just got to read the book, man. Like I don't know, it's a book that's unlike other book. It's a very singular type of book, and in its specificity of every single line and word choice. You know what I mean? Like, so it's hard to have a conversation about it because it's like actually very dense. There's like a lot of stuff that happens. It's like a very, very dense sort of parable.
So the viewers of the Pope as the Antichrist. So what is your view of does Orthodoxy take it this far, or is it only Protestantism where it says
this is sort of what the split was over, because the Orthodox, they have like patriarchs and things like this, but they do not I mean, it depends on who you ask. And it's like the Orthodox Church is also kind of liberalized a lot. I mean, like all churches have kind of their ostentation to being an unbroken tradition is kind of farcical. They're always reforming themselves, and then the Protestants take the blame for being like the reformers or whatever, as if the Orthodox Church is the same as it was in the early days of Christ or whatever. But they're more ecumenical these days. But way back in the day, oh yeah, they called the Pope the Antichrist all the fucking time.
Wow. So
This is an interesting thing, right? Martin Luther, for instance, there was an emissary from the Ethiopian Orthodox Church who came to visit Luther, and they shared their things, and the Ethiopian Orthodox guy said that it was a perfectly fine church. It was in accord with Orthodoxy. So he was sort of saying, like, in a way, the Protestant Reformation was a return to tradition in the attempt to create these sort of national Orthodox churches.
I've actually heard that before. That view.
I view it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. Like,
get it right now. Like, what is the actual reigning Catholic power? We have a Catholic president. The Pope and the Rockefeller Foundation are indistinguishable. Like, this isn't Christianity. Like, that's not what Christianity is. The Roman Antichrist. Like, obviously, it's so patently, blatantly true. I don't know. So I guess other people disagree.
But one of the things that I have to ask is, with Roman paganism, is that a corruption from some kind of original monotheism? Because Christianity is the merger of Semitic religion, right, with the Indo-European pantheon through the form of the Roman Empire. So,
kind of, in some ways.
Yeah, yeah.
It's more complicated than that, man. It's really a lot more complicated than that, as I've been discovering, because it's not that simple. Because what is Roman paganism? Like, at what time? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, I just see it as the polytheism of the Roman religion. I'm not that educated on it.
They had different Rome was a lot, like, really imagine Rome, just imagine like what is America's religion? That's what Rome's like. Like we're very, very, very similar. Like we're actually, I keep thinking about how similar our times are to like the times of Christ, in the sense of, Roman Empire was going through a lot of the same turmoils that we are, and like their religion is like, this is like Rome has like transgender like imperial like conquests and things like this. Like if you want to look at
We're unmuted.
trans ally. I respect all trans people and everything about them and their dreams and their happiness, and I wish nothing but the best for them. Oh, is this my fire alarm?
Fuck. Damn. What a weird. Okay. His fire alarm's going off, guys, so I just muted it. Oh, his wife was cooking.
Classic white pine.
Yeah, alright. His wife was cooking. Yeah. Alright.
Okay, are we back?
Yeah, we're back. We're back.
All right, cool. Yeah, my bad, dude. I don't mean to get you in trouble for
No,
anything.
no, it's alright.
I don't even know. Yeah,
We're unmuted
whatever.
now.
I don't even care. Like I'm like beyond give a shit about culture.
Yeah, let's just like get back to what we're saying.
Yeah, I was just saying like we're like Rome's like a really what I was getting really interested in recently was like the like Roman like tribune of the plebes and things like this. I think we need a tribune of the plebes. That would be great. That's effectively what people were trying to do with Occupy, was effectively a tribune of the plebes, which is like creating a senate to like elect like the people's representatives to like kind of circumvent Congress.
This is a really this is a very like how should I put it? Non-Christian thing to say, but I have to play the satanic devil's advocate. So I saw this theory once that the story of Christianity was a kind of
Yeah, this is a Caesar's Christ that it was created.
That's the
I
one.
know this.
That's the one.
There's some parts of that. There's some parts of that which are like kind of true, and some parts that are not. It's actually I've been really invested. Spent years looking at the early Christian apocrypha and the changes to specific passages in Gospels and like letters, epistles, and like which things are left out, etc. Because there is this like early civil war in the church over where like it was going to go,
Yeah.
and a big part of that was what's their family? That's a whole you've read the book, right? So it's what is it? It's not Diocletian, is it? Fuck, what's the name? There's like a family that one of the Roman patriarchal families that were like early Christians, and yeah, and like there's like people who think that they're connected to Paul and things like that. I've gone down like all the rabbit holes. It's kind of hard to tell. New Testament scholarship and this sort of stuff is constantly in a flux because we keep finding more stuff, and then it's like and it's like super political, right? To like do a sort of reinterpretation in light of like new evidence, or to try to posit sort of a continuity of like what parties were involved here and writing which parts, because like the documentary record is fragmented and we don't even have access to all of it because there's so much shit the Vatican has.
Yeah, I mean, I just find it very strange how the martyrdom of Caesar has been so like underemphasized. Like that was crazy how he was martyred for being a champion of the people, and then there was an entire cult of Caesar that was created after. His last name became the title of the emperors of Rome afterwards, and it's like I feel like the mythology of that, like what happened to that? That's like a really big story, right? I know that there was Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, and that's what most people know the story for, but it's so weird how that mythology has just never.
Well, it's because Caesarism came on to like take this sort of sense of like the way that the Enlightenment would read Caesar is as
A despot.
as a despot who's
Yeah.
appealing to like basically like the lumpens, to seize like arbitrary power and like take people's properties and things like this.
Yeah.
That's how they would have interpreted it.
I was so sad when I saw when I found out that Rosa Luxemburg used to operate under the pen name Junius after Brutus, right? And I was like,
I
oh, come
no,
on.
yeah. Well, there's also a kind of civic mythology in a way, connecting and kind of conflating together in a way. Brutus of Troy with Brutus helps kill Caesar
Yeah.
in the founding of Britain, like as in like Britain, like Britain. Like Brutus is one of the ancestral like mythological figures of the British. And like there's a lot of people who took the Roman Republic as the model to go by, and
Yeah,
they
that
saw
that
the
was the
empire. Like
foundation. That was the neoclassical myth, was the return to
it's
Rome.
because it's also like the huge influence of like Cicero on
Yeah.
medieval pedagogy. Like Cicero was taken, like it's kind of funny compared to like what Cicero was actually like,
He
but
was an
they took a
asshole.
like yeah, he was I said he was like a hedge fund guy because he really
Yeah.
was. He was invested in all these like early like trade corporations. Yeah,
Cicero
it's
was
kind of
like
funny.
a shit lib.
Well, this is what's funny is that it's because you could say that we can see this more now when we read it, where it's like, well, obviously we like Julius Caesar, but it's because we're actually closer to like Rome than they were, right? So
Yeah.
like they were reading these things and they were like not like they didn't even. This is at the time where they still didn't really they didn't really understand what a mass sport spectacle would look like what the purpose of the Colosseums was. There's a whole kind of mythology they had where they interpreted like that they were just like people like being killed like on stage and things like this, and that's like all that they did at the Colosseums. There's like these theaters of cruelty, but like it's probably much more like that they were like carnivals, which is what they were called, and that they had it wasn't necessarily that the gladiators were even killing each other. Maybe they were like more like WWF guys, they're like professional fighters and things like this. And that like this sort of mass sporting fandom didn't exist in the times when people were romanticizing the Roman Republic, so they couldn't even understand like what the Roman Empire was like, because we're actually closer to the Roman Empire in the levels of like civic infrastructure and like the size of the empire and like the way the administration and things work than these British people were.
Yeah, I mean, it's so weird how Michael Parenti was the first to make the connection between Caesar and uh like I guess left wing populism or whatever. And I think the context was Hugo Chavez, right? As Chavez was the Caesar of our time, you know. He was the ultimate example of that. Like, you want to know who was Julius Caesar? Just look at Hugo Chavez. Both were Latin speaking, so that's a good addition. But yeah,
This whole thing is really what's Caesar? Caesar's about the forgiveness of debts. That's how he gained his meat. Like that's what it was all about. You know, he ran on forgiveness of debts basically in pretty much all ways. Like even when like he beat someone, he would forgive them, and he'd show and they would join him. Showed benevolence. This is way to go. There's no like the sort of the problem with like internet politics or the way people do this is they think that they need to find a particular position kind of abstractly, and they'll hold that position and they'll pull everyone to that position somehow. But that's not really how it should work. Like in a more like pragmatic sense, you want to go out and just start you replace the existing order by creating one that's better within the one that exists. So I think that's like the real project, like a third party, right? If you want to do like a Caesarism, you're not going to do this uh, in the structures that are laid out for you. You actually have to make.
I don't know if we can have a Caesarism in the U.S. I think Trump was probably, maybe in 2016 at least, he was very close to this, I guess.
You could. I
Yeah.
have like, I mean, I'm just speculating here, like coming up with things, but I thought of like the notion of like have elections ostensibly, but they don't do very good. So what if we ran our own election to elect a candidate, but what it was this sort of like tournament structure of people actually like debating on issues or whatever, and we kind of like outsource this to the people themselves, like create a more democratic electoral system that actually reflects, instead of people picking
You mean
between
to decide the leader of the People's Party?
a tribune of the plebes.
Ah, interesting. That's actually really, yeah, a tribune of the
Because then
people. Yeah.
you're actually building the authority of the party, and you're, because if people are participating in this, like, right, and this, and like it's building the intelligence of it too, because you're seeing like what is like the most salable platform that could like
You
attract the
know,
most
come to
people.
think of it, I don't know why people didn't make the connection to Caesarism more in the beginning, because if you think about it, the whole concept of the proletariat was this kind of like, it was a kind of teasing. It was a kind of like challenge to the neoclassical Roman citizen as like this model of republican virtue. Who were saying, "Oh, you're talking about the citizen, the French citizen of the universal republic, whatever." Well, just like in ancient Rome, the citizen too becomes divided, and that's the primary contradiction. We have the universal citizen. Sure, classes are eliminated formally, but now we have the proletarians and so on and so on. But
It's all about the landed
the fact of
property.
the Roman proletariat precipitates the end of the Republic. And I think you can reread that and say the existence of the proletariat precipitates the end of the bourgeois formal state and its sublation into some kind of empire, right? But not empire in the bad sense, but just in the sense of like a return to like a rule that is legitimated by something more than just the form of the state itself.
Yeah, I mean, like that. I don't think the way people are playing the politics game, or at least the millennials. I feel like as a generation, millennials have like almost learned nothing about how to play the politics game, and I like really
But
like the
it's like
fallout
it's
of
almost like I
Occupy.
can't even make the first step because I don't even know what planet I'm on most of the time. I just like people are tweeting at me, "Oh, you're a chauvinist." It's like, wait, are we still doing this? Like, I left you guys in like 2015 and I went my own way and I came back and they haven't changed. It's like, really? We're still doing this?
They still are. People are going to keep doing it unless
We're
we
still
make
doing
something better.
this like weird thing where people are just like, "Oh, you're a racist and you're this." It's like, dude, have you not matured this whole time? Nothing happened. Nothing changed. I thought we would have gotten to a point by now where it's like, okay, well, can we actually talk about the real world? we're still talking about our little bubble and how pure you are within the bubble and whatever. Like, I don't know. I just think no one grew up since I left them, you know? I can't hear you. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Nope, sorry, can't hear you. Can't hear anything. Damn. Yeah, it's the input. The problem with the input settings.
Oh, now.
Yeah, I can hear you
Is
now.
that good? Dude, I swear to God, my electronics get fucked all the time. I don't know what's going on. But
Yeah, that's why
goddamn.
I'm scared to move beyond the Yeti mic, the USB mic, because it's like, yeah, it just seems very complicated. But
Yeah, I think my cat unplugged a thing, but it's whatever. Anyway,
yeah,
I what I was saying is I think if I recall correctly, is like I don't feel like millennials like have learned the politics game. This isn't really that like real to them. I feel like everyone, and it's like like the reason why it can keep going is because people are like basically addicted to pornography, in like mental pornography or like video game, like feedback reward systems, like loot crate bullshit, NFTs, cryptocurrency, like the notion that like you're gonna speculate and like you're gonna be the big influencer and get famous, and like then you won't have to worry about any of these things anymore. That all of that is the problem. It's like we're like a smut addled civilization. Like it's really like the opium epidemic. But it's not even just opium. It's like just like a complete try to escape from acknowledging the reality of the world.
I don't like to say I'm an empathetic person, but I do always put myself in the head of my enemies and just be like, how could you live like this? I want to see how they live with, how do they get by with this way of thinking? And I always struggle to be like, how could I imagine myself being one of them? Like somebody who's always, virtue signaling and talking about like, here is the bullet points of why Haas is a misogynist, racist, I don't know, reactionary. Firstly, he is completely against the movement. It's like I feel like they get this pleasure from using these words, like they're like participating in some kind of like social reality, and they're addressing this crowd.
They're moving
right?
up. They're moving up in the sort of like occulted hierarchy of like this little lodge, by like repeating the dogmas or whatever. It's not real communication. It's not communicating what you think it's communicating, if that makes sense. Right? Like the content is entirely meaningless, like the charges,
But it's like
etc.
it just every time I try to put myself in their head, I just get this sick feeling in my stomach. How the fuck could you live like this? You know what I mean? Like,
They're miserable. They're all
yeah,
miserable.
they
All
have to
hate
be.
themselves.
They have to be really miserable.
Oh my god.
Oh, it's another fire.
God damn it, Free.
Damn.
This fire alarm because it's just this weird apartment. God, anytime you cook anything, it goes off.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's uh,
I have empathy for them, but they embrace their own misery. Like they create their this is why I think Christian ethics and hermeneutics are interesting because it's like Swedenborg would say this too. People choose to go to hell, and some people enjoy being in hell. There's some people who
I
enjoy like
would.
inflicting pain on
Well,
themselves.
here's the thing. I would understand if there's stakes. like let's say there's a real movement and struggle that's made real achievements, then I would get it because it's there's actually something at stake. Like they're being this dogmatic and this emotional because like they don't want to lose, their position, and they don't want to lose. They're part of it's. There's some real world reality to it where it's like, yeah, we can't risk it. But what I'm trying to think is like, why are people so close-minded and dogmatic about everything?
They're trained to be that way.
But what is it for? Because it's not like they're part of some political movement that's gotten anywhere in the real world. So it's like, what do you really have to lose by just being a little bit more open-minded? I don't know.
What do they have to lose? Like basically, if you embed yourself in one of these like societies of like mutual scapegoating and whatnot, what you have to lose is now you're getting everything that you've doled out all the time you've been in there. It's going to come down to you. Bro, every time you went out and you like canceled and you like wrote up and you were surveilling people and like, writing up all their lists of sins before of bad sentiments and bad ideology, and you wrote them up and you tried to get them crucified in the public stage. That'll happen to you as soon as you realize what you've done and you've tried to like change. It'll all come back to you. And they know that. They're all afraid of doing it. I've seen like it's the same on the right too, ironically. Like all of these people aren't actually as racist as they pretend to be and all of these other things. And if you meet any of them in real life, they're not like that at all. It's they're playing this game, and their status in this game is determined by like finding like that right pose to fit, right? So that like the based pose, or like in the left version, would be the most ethically good one. In the right one, it's almost the most ethically nihilistic in a way.
Yeah,
like
and the reason, and I've said this before, the reason is because the right is trying it's defined itself in America as a form of total resistance against the discursive tyranny of the left. So they'll do anything they can to prove how much they don't care to virtue signal to anyone, whatever. But the issue that I find with that is that there's a lot of people who just so happen to, at the same time, be completely socially ostracized and canceled. They're also scumbags, like pedos. Think about pedos, right? Like, at what point does being a pedo become based just because you're defying the discourse? So you have to be very careful, right? It's not everything that the discourse is against is good. It's just that you can have other reasons for not liking things. You know what I mean? Like, you can still be against pedos without being a virtue signaler for the discourse. That makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's also like the irony there is like, okay, cool, let's shut down 4chan. And it's like, okay, start there. Like just turn it off, make it go away. We're gonna do that.
But actually, it's interesting.
Suddenly you're quiet. Like,
it's interesting because this is a thing: is that the pedo shit is becoming normalized on the left. It's becoming.
It was already. This is a part of like the left.
Thank you, Jenna.
The '60s.
Yeah, that's true. But for a long time, the left pretended to be against it or whatever. But now they're starting to be like, oh, let's have empathy. And the first. So I don't know if they're actually gonna start saying children are not protected anymore, but they're gonna start by saying, oh, let's treat this genuine sexual orientation with like artificial pornography and robots, like Vaush said or whatever, and that's completely fine because no children are involved. But that's.
What all it is? All they're saying, like what Vaush is saying there, is that in Japan right now, basically they already have their paradise for what they're looking for, right? Like you can get all of that pornography and in a video game form, or peripheral like sex toys or whatever the fuck. They just don't give a fuck there. Their real problem is that there's just still like the last residual remnants of like a Christian like blue law regarding like this type of thing in the marketplace not being allowed to be sold. Like all they really care about is like just maximal consumption of like that sort of shit. That's it. Like that's all it means.
Yeah, that's
what I mean when it's like when someone like Vaush is saying that, like he's just defending like hentai.
I think that's going to be the source of the conservative revolution on the left, and I think I might benefit from it a lot, which is that as soon as so look, right now the left has this idea in America, which is like anything that is part of the discourse and looks like it's part of the progress of society is good, and then if you're opposed to that, you're a reactionary. Well, as soon as people start bringing up the nuance of pedos and how that it's just a sexual orientation, it's not their fault, this is going to increasingly become discursively relevant, and people are going to be forced to draw red lines. And drawing a red line is the first step to being able to confront the modern progress in general. And I just wonder, how are these lefties opposed to me calling me a reactionary, how are they gonna draw a red line? Like what's the basis of your red line? Because how are you going to maintain this idea that you're a part of some kind of like real progress of going forward in history, and at the same time just be like, you know what, this is my red line, I don't care how irrational I seem, fuck that shit, it's not happening, right? That's going to be their gateway drug to like taking my pill, I hope. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you would hope, but maybe I don't know, man. I don't really know. That's placing bets on a human nature that I might not necessarily on or at least one that is defined in opposition to revelation, you could say, would go towards, because the norm in human history is closer to like what they're trying to create. And like Camille Paglia, do you see those things I retweeted from about Camille Paglia, like all her defenses of Nambla and things like that over the years?
Yeah, I know about that. That's why I hate Camila, whatever the
Well,
name is.
the thing is like she's okay, like when she's writing about some things. Like I've read a lot of her stuff, but she was like an acolyte of Bloom, who was like an acolyte of Fry, and like Fry's really much better than all of them. So that's how I see it. But she was saying, in there, right, like it's really just these Abrahamic faiths that have this quirk or whatever
Yeah, she's
against
a big
man boy love.
she's a big
So
like Nietzschean. She loves the Nietzschean Dionysian paganism.
they've already accepted it though. What was that movie? They had a whole movie. What is it? I haven't seen it. But it's Call Me by Your Name. I think that's what it's called, right? Isn't it about like a man with like an underage boy that's like a relationship? And
Huh?
it
No,
was
I've never heard of that.
yeah, it was a very popular movie. This was like before the Cuties debacle even, and it's kind of ironic because it didn't get as much as the outroar, even though it's like kind of more blatantly pro pedophilic or pro pederastic in this sense. And the Cuties movie, which was actually kind of trying to be critical.
Jesus. What the hell?
That's not new though. This is aristocratic morality. This is British. This is almost like the height of Britishness. Is like this is Oscar Wilde type stuff. This is it's kind of a part of the progressive tradition in that sense, because they were going against like these anti-sodomy laws or whatever in Britain, and this was like kind of conflated in there. And in fact, if you go all the way back, you can read Bentham talking about the legalization of pederasty in one of his writings.
Here's the thing: is that without venturing too much in this territory, don't you think that the lefties are going to be forced with a lot of arguments where it's like, by trying to draw a red line when it comes to that, they're going to be like, "Oh, you seem like just like the reactionaries in the '80s and '90s when it came to other minorities and whatever. Like you're this is right. You sound just like a reactionary with regards to like how are they gonna like deal with that? Like how are they gonna be like, no, this one's different?
Like, what is their justification going to be?
Well, I don't. That's what I think is that my hypothesis is that they're gonna have a complete existential crisis because they don't have any red lines right now, but they're gonna need to discover one unless they're
my fear is more,
unless the left wants to eventually accept like pedo shit and bestiality, they're gonna have to discover some kind
I think
of
they
red line.
do. I think that's what most leftists are like, though, like quote unquote leftists on the internet, like the radical leftists, like the
Yeah.
ultra leftists or whatever. They're like furries. They're like people who
Oh
live
god.
on it. They're like deviant art people. They're like they're a deep, dark, dank part of internet pornography. That is that's where it all comes from. Like it's concentric with those places.
Yeah,
Like
you would not have and we don't want to be discriminatory against anyone. Remember, it's Twitch, but you would not believe how much. I don't know much about the furry movement, so whatever. But you would not know how much furries have been on my back on Twitter. Like I get attacked by them like almost every day, and
Yeah,
I
because
go on. I look at.
they're the vanguard. They're the vanguard party, man. They're the vanguard party because they're the ones who want to upload themselves into and like have a digital avatar in the metaverse. Actually, this is like something one of the guys who was like working on metaverse stuff or whatever had to write like a post being like addressing like how many furries were emailing him like excitedly about some one of these like Neuralink technology sort of things. These are the people they want to live in the internet. Yeah, where they can be anything and they can have sex with anything or whatever.
Oh man, you know I can't imagine people who have to just spend. Are you a person who gets to spend a lot of time alone, or just maybe just with your wife, like not with crowds or
Pretty
whatever?
much like all the time.
That's what I'm trying to say. Is like I can't imagine what it'd be like to be a person who never. I feel like privacy is our only salvation in this age. Like our ability to just be alone is the biggest grace and blessing we could have. Because being forced to be socialized with all of these people or whatever, it's like I could
Yeah.
not do it. I don't have the
Well,
ability to do that.
I think socializing that way is kind of antisocial in this day and age, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
it is. But like when you're trapped and being forced to be around these people, these lefties or
I
whatever,
have
like
fun, man. I have so much fun when it happens to me. I don't
but
know, but
imagine you. I don't know. I feel like you take your privacy for granted because imagine if that's your whole life. You're just always around them, always.
that's what it was like when I went to college, I guess. So I kind of remember, and what I did was I just spent a lot of time on my own, reading. But in some ways, this is why I've like been really interested in Thomas the Great, Saint Anthony the Great. What am I saying? Saint Anthony the Great, the Hermit, the Great Desert Father. Because I feel like that's sort of what is like that's the salvation you find in this day and age. Like he's the one who's like constantly harangued by demons. If you look up like paintings of him, like they're like, well, and I always love, I'm like, that's me on Twitter. Like that's what I feel like. There's all these things like attacking me and like holding on to me, and I just have to. It's weird because it's kind of seems like it'd be antisocial to like embrace solitude in a way, but I think that it's paradoxically extremely pro-social in the sense
It
of like
is.
positively.
Well, I can talk to people as human beings very easily, but I always tell this to my chat is that I cannot talk to CCTV cameras. People who just never know how to turn off their discourse, their stream of discourse, and
You just give them riddles, man. It's fun.
yeah, I don't know. It's just tough for me to like.
Yeah, I feel like yeah, you have more investment in your public image, I feel, than than I have. 'Cause
Yeah,
I kind of
definitely.
enjoy I don't really care. Like I kind of enjoy when a bunch of people are upset at me. Like I think it's funny. So, like I don't like so so like in the same situations though, like if I'm surrounded by those sorts of people, I just have fun. I have so much fun asking them questions and like, just like getting like just like moving them around. Just it's fun.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like I felt physically sick for like 3 days after being on Twitter. I took a break from Twitter, and then I felt so much better just taking a break. And I was like, what the hell was I doing? I felt like I blacked out, and it was just
Yeah,
like I got trapped on Twitter, just
yeah, I've
constant.
done that.
Like because I felt like I got gaslighted. I gaslighted myself. Like, what the fuck? Like, this has nothing to do with where my train of thought was like a week ago. What the fuck happened?
Yeah, I mean, it happens, man. I've had I feel like sometimes it's like when that sort of thing happens, it's like you have to. It's like you kind of. It's not like you're asking for it or you deserve it, but there is something like that you have to learn from it because nothing like that garners a
What the only
response like
thing
that.
that just still kind of has me a little shook is like thousands. Where did the thousands come from? I get it if there's like hundreds, but like 10,000 people on my back.
It's really
Why?
important because no one had articulated to any sort of audience at all a position that socialists should be patriotic, i.e., and not kind of like anti-patriotic or seeking to kind of erase the history of America as like a kind of blight upon the
What I
earth
find
that needs correction.
hilarious is that the way they cope when you respond, they're like, "Well, the only reason other countries are Marxist-Leninist countries are patriotic is because that's only insofar as they're victims of imperialism, but otherwise they wouldn't be patriotic." And what I have to tell those people is that that's such a condescending, like, stupid view, because you realize these people aren't part of your university. I know in your university people leverage their identities to get ahead for their careers, and they're making it seem like entire states are leveraging their POC identity to get ahead, right? Or to virtue. That's not how it works. When they say that they're patriots, it's not because they're oppressed. They're genuinely people who love their country and love, their history and their people. And like, it's not it's not a way of saying, oh, I'm oppressed and I want you to.
Well, it comes from like an alienation with their own history though too, because like a lot of the times like the people who are most vocally like anti or like they're a kind of lack of interest in the history of America because it's more complicated. That's one of the things that bothers me, right? Where it's like, do I get to be offended when people make like these like wide generalizations and stereotypes of like the type like what the early American people were like and like what they believed and like what their goals were and like what they were trying to do and like how they viewed the world? Because people have a totally skewed conception of like all of this, and it's like don't have like a kind of not a relativistic one, but a kind of a sense of the proportion of things in history. So it's like, okay, you're saying America is like reactionary or like bourgeois revolution, blah blah blah. But it's like, what was better at the time? Like at the exact same time, like what society are you going to point to? Like that's like the context required to like appreciate any of these
Well,
things,
it's
right?
the
And it's
British
like,
Empire.
yeah,
Do you know? Do you also agree that they're probably going to prepare Meghan Markle?
oh, dude, I've been saying that for just as long as you have, man, if
Really?
not longer. Oh yeah,
Wow. Yeah, I feel like
it's
when
so
that
obvious.
happens. But here's the thing: is like, how will we claim credit when it happens? Like, is there a place I go to be like, yeah, pay up? Like, how am I supposed to claim the credit for that? Because I really
You don't.
do. I have gotten
You
to a
just get
point
to.
where I want to start claiming credit for being right about shit.
Well, if you really want to do that and you want to profit off of it monetarily, then you can just go to a betting market and you can put on a thing like a date with a time. You can go down to Vegas and you can make tons of bets on stupid shit like this anywhere, man. So if you really want to put your money down and like
No,
win
I don't
something out
want
of
a
being right,
monetary benefit, but like, I want all of these lefties who say like, "Oh, Haas is whatever." Like, I want them to just be like, "Yes, Haas is right," and I want the good. My ego wants to be
well,
socially.
what happens is this is what I would say is like this, or at least this is what I believe or what I've experienced is a lot of the times these people were like really like outrageously like responding in this way or whatever. It's because this thing is going to like nest in their mind. Like it's like if it's like because they have like a knee jerk like Pavlovian reaction to like an overreact to it. It's because this thing is going to like haunt their minds, and in some cases, it's sort of like this like pain, which is sort of like sticking your tongue in where your tooth just fell out, and you're like poking the nerve, and you can't stop yourself from doing it for some reason. Um, and they'll just keep doing that, and they'll come back. They come back to get for correction, and then eventually they'll get it. It's happened to me before. There's people who have like hated me, and they're just like constantly trying to tell me I'm wrong or whatever, and then they'll come back and they'd be like, okay, you were like right about this one thing, but I think you're still wrong about X, Y, or Z. And then it's just like over and over and over again, and sometimes they're incapable of making the recognition at the end, and sometimes they're just like thanks. That's nice. You get that when someone says thanks.
Yeah, but here with me is that I don't feel like I'm gonna forgive these people when they say thanks. I
Infrared
feel like
rising.
thank you,
Have
Swag. I
to.
feel like I'm still a little bitter, and I'm gonna be like, you know what? Fuck you. You should have said thanks.
You have to.
Yeah,
You have to.
it's
You
hard
have
for me
to.
to forgive. Honestly, it's so hard.
I know, dude. That's like I'm for real though. This is like the message of Christ. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like
True.
I'm very serious about this though, man. Like like I see so many people like affect it, and like I hate how it's used as like a political prop. But I mean, like it's it's like the most important book ever written, and it's like very fucking, I don't know, it's life changing to read and reread, and that's what people have been saying for forever, and it's like unique in that way, unlike other things.
You know, my relation to religion a lot of the time, and this is a self criticism I'm gonna do, is that I'm a hypocrite. So what I do is I say there's a lot of salvation here and wisdom or whatever, but I'm gonna ignore it intentionally so I can sin a lot, and then
Yes.
when I'm done sinning, I'll come back to it and learn my lesson. But first, I want
Well,
to.
that's how I know you're an American, actually, in your heart, because that's
Yeah.
the American relation. That's the pragmatic relation to religion,
Yeah,
right?
precisely.
You get drunk on Saturday night, and then you go repent Sunday morning. It's the
Yep.
Irish way too, you know.
Yeah.
That's my that's my life, in some ways. But that's not really what it's about. Like that's the outward ceremony of it all.
Yeah, no, when you say that, it's 100% true. Like, despite my ethnic whatever background, I'm 100% American, and that's in my soul. That's something deep in my soul is very American, and I just can't control that. You know, whether I like America or not, I have the curse of America inside of me. You
In some ways, it's not. Well, like that's why it's like, because everything comes mixed, and you know, like because there's some aspects of like what was being like kind of covered up, like all of these things being like put into one camp as like sinful things or like things that you know, are bad and like banned. And that wasn't good. That wasn't a good relation, because there were good things in there too, and you don't want to ban good things. So then you have like so like we've kind of been more in this like sort of like libertarian age, where it's kind of like everything out, like, you know, everything. We're just going to try everything, all like, you know, this repression of the Freudian repression or whatever. We're going to go everything out in the open. And I feel like we've already like done that. That's what the internet is, everything out in the open, and we can like really confront. We can look at it and be like, okay, so this is like what the psyche of our
know? Yeah.
people is like
You know,
fucking out there.
in
So like, let's decide if this is like what do we do about this
you know,
now?
in a way, my streams most of the time is a form of sin to me. The way I act on stream and the type of shit I say on stream, like 99% of the time, I'm usually like, this is not something I would say to Logo. This is not something I would say to Caleb. This is,
Yeah,
you know,
it's well, the thing is like the medium compels it, right? Like,
yeah,
because that's content. That's like, and it's kind of funny. People say that all the time on Twitch, and they're like, yeah, like that's content, but like it drives like.
yeah.
I remember watching the saga of like Ice Poseidon. Ice Poseidon, I feel like
Oh
is like
no, we can't. He's banned. So
oh, I can't talk about him.
no, yeah, that's
Oh
so
my
weird.
dude, we live in the fucking dumbest times. Holy shit. Like it's so dumb.
Yeah, like I said, it's like
I
I'm
want
like,
1776 to commence again, man. Like this is what I believe in. This is too much for me.
look,
I can't can't
I'm a humble peasant who lives in fear of the Khan. You know, the Khan's wrath. I have to cower in fear. But
Oof.
it's
You're failing the dialectical challenge then there, man. You got to fight to the death
no,
against you
absolutely
got to
not.
fight to the death against the bad policy, against the
The master
censorship.
slave dialectic, absolutely not. I humbly avow myself a slave. I really
The
do.
unhappy consciousness of Twitch.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess you do
Uh,
have to have more of a stoical self-conception to be a good streamer, because the whole goal is to be like Destiny, right? And it's like nothing could phase Destiny because he has no shame.
no, my goal is to use this as a launching pad to start a media company.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
don't I
mean, you
don't I
guys do
don't
your documentaries and things are probably the highest quality stuff. There's some
we
good stuff you get.
that's what it's
But
about. That's really
honestly, the debates are like mostly a waste of time. I
yeah.
tried it out, but it's really a waste of time. You
We
can't
what I
actually
my goal
communicate anything.
is so the strategy is accumulate, concentrate, and retain as much attention as possible for as long as possible. Up the ante and keep upping the ante on the documentaries and create a feedback cycle where I constantly do stupid and ugly things in order to produce smart and beautiful things better than before, you know?
Yeah, it's a good move.
It's like
It's gonna be really hard for
it's
you
like what
because
Tamerlane did. Tamerlane, he went and he did this horrible barbaric shit, and then he collected all of the artists and the artisans and the painters and poets, philosophers, and he brought them to Samarkand, right? And um, the more ugly shit he did, and the more infamous he was, the more beautiful the products of the Renaissance could be.
I mean, that's like that's the sort of tragic mantle of the actual like communist revolutionaries, right? Is like Mao and Stalin is it's like we live in a time where I don't know. I don't really know. It's like you have to you have to like be inducted into like the fucking occult in this country. Like, I feel like I'm like in a lot of ways. I feel like I'm like the ex Mason or something, like the ex 33rd degree ascended Mason.
Same. I feel like I'm an ex. I don't know if I ever got to that position, but I always see myself as an ex. I see myself as Mike from Twin Peaks. I used to be, you know, Mike, like the Bob's
Yeah,
friend who repented or whatever. I was like that. I was in some strange, dark, mystical, whatever place where I was tempted. I didn't never went there, but I was being tempted by some dark presence of some kind, and I just climbed my way out, I guess.
yeah. It's like you kind of like see it or don't. But there's like key decision moments. Like I can remember times. Like I know what
You
you
know,
mean. Like
I
where it's like the devil whispering in your ear, and it's like when you make that decision, it's like you really are choosing like a
I
fork in the road.
I read a beautiful blog once, and it's from a long time ago, where it's like this, you know, old shitty blog, simple blog, and it was just this guy describing how why he left Freemasonry, and he was saying he got really high in the degrees of Freemasonry, and then he came to some kind of Masonic ceremony, which just him and another guy, where they were meeting with the leader of the Freemason, whatever, and he was getting anointed with the degree or whatever. And then he said, randomly, just spontaneously, he looked around the Masonic temple and he was just overcome with this dark feeling. And he said, I felt like I was in a coffin. Like I looked around and I know the Masons talk about a god and a grand architect, but he said, I just had this very huge feeling of death and just I was in a coffin. Like the Masonic building was just this coffin, right?
A
And then he
crypt,
said,
yeah.
so I turned around spontaneously and I left. And ever since then, I never looked back. And now I walk in the step of Christ or whatever. So, you know, in the light of Christ. So to me, and you know, it's so profound what he said, the coffin thing, because that is what Masonry is. It's a
It's
way of,
part of the that's actually part of the skull and bone ceremony. Is
yeah,
you lay in the coffin.
but the Masons try to reify the living essence of God. And it is, in a sense, like a dead thing that they worship.
Worship disembodied reason.
Yeah, precisely.
And what it is Christianity without the revelation, because no
Precisely.
Christ as a historical figure, as a person, as a real person in the world. He was just another messenger for this disembodied rationality.
Precisely, yes. And the revelation is another word for like the living, the source of the living essence, right? That's something that's just it's can't be domesticated. It can't be formally it can't be replicated with formal precision. It can't be artificially created. It's not premised.
It's holistic. It's a monad. I'm getting
Yeah.
into Leibniz, but yeah, it's that's like where the whole Masonic cosmos comes from. Is a well, it's a little bit more complicated, but the one that we know, like Enlightenment era Masonry on through like Theosophy to now, is it's so influential that it's literally everywhere. That makes sense. Like it's
Yeah, I
bled
know
into
that.
like people are unconsciously this.
I've had psychotic breaks where I was like, "What the fuck? It is everywhere!" Like, holy shit, this is not a joke.
Yeah,
This is real life. This is not a game. Like, I went to the Masonic Temple once for a party, an event, and I just had like a near psychotic break. I was safe,
yeah.
thankfully, but because I was like, "What the fuck? This is actually real life. This isn't like something I read on the computer. Like, this is actually real life. Like." They made a whole building dedicated to this. You know what I
Dude,
mean?
you should
Like,
see San Francisco. It's literally like the Masonic design city. I walk around and I'm just like in a perpetual. It's like, dude, it's like one of the weirdest places in the country. But like the Masons built this place.
it's so paranoid because when you live in this world, you want to feel like there's an element of spontaneity and authentic.
Oh, that's the beauty of
Yeah,
Hegel, though, right? Is that literally everything you see, everything, literally everything, to the smallest tiny little thing, is perfectly rational. You can, and it has a perfectly reasonable like history that would unfold so much about the world, like if you were to trace it, like because it contains every piece of the world contains the history of the whole entire world.
yeah. So, so is that both you and Kantbot, or you independent? Because I know both of Kantbot
Well,
also
we
is
kind
really.
of we've been I mean, man, we've been friends and talking about the
Yeah,
same stuff for so long
I know
that
you
it's
guys are
like,
both really into the Leibniz now, modenology.
yeah, monads.
Yeah.
It makes sense though. This is like a dude. It connects to like John D. Dude, it's I don't know what other people are doing with their lives, Haas, but like I have such a great time just uncovering all of this crazy shit about the world, and people get mad at me for like just talking
What is
about
the
it. I don't know.
connection to John Dee from
Well, he wrote the
Leibniz?
Monas Hieroglyphica, right, which is the hieroglyphic monad, and what it was is they used this sort of like monad. It was like called like hieroglyphic hermeneutics, and it's this idea of creating these like nested layers of meaning that are meant to mean different things to different audiences. So it's encrypting in this package for public consumption different messages to different people. That's like where their like Shakespearean theater comes from, is like this sort of a type of storytelling. And the like this was a big innovation.
Um,
Like in the book, the hieroglyphic monad itself, it has like a geopolitical level. Like there are parts of it that are like meant for the queen to read, and like there's like you know what I mean? Like, but it was also like available for public consumption.
yes, but you know what's creeping me out is like I have done this practice like independently without knowing about John Dee or anything. Like a lot of my writings in the past have been layered like this, where it's
Yeah, it's
like,
because we've all read Shakespeare. Like, I mean, Shakespeare basically is you know, he's like a world historical figure for this sort of reason. And in fact, this is like what's so fucking nuts about like the actual reality of who wrote Shakespeare and like what it actually means. Um, it's because the Shakespeare name and like the title and like this figure is also like it's a fucking hologram, dude. Like it's not a real entity. It's a completely fictitious historical entity, and that it means different things. Like you know what I mean? So this is like what the British invented, was this sort of insane level. You could call it like black magic and stuff like that, right? But what it is
yeah, it
like
is.
it's like public relations, marketing, theater, stagecraft, narrativology, like dramatizations, acting, you know, intelligence networks, finance, like
It's
manipulation of
I
markets,
call it.
piracy.
I wonder if the monad is what I call the sovereign object, Anglo-Saxon metaphysics. Because to me, this is all about the birth of this kind of substance or this kind of object, which is fundamentally the only absolute. Everything else being like transient and unreal or not fundamental. But my question, what I never understood about monads is how are there different monads? Would it like how are there differences basically?
You'd be like, honestly, man, like when it comes down to like if you're like a more classically trained in like the philosophical like rigmarole and whatnot, so you should talk to Kantbot about that, because he would love to go
Oh,
off
okay.
on this, especially. And I won't do as good of a job as he will, frankly, because he's like, I learned so much from him about this stuff, because like that wasn't really my forte, but I've gotten more literate on that stuff over the years. But like I'm more of like a theology guy or whatever, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also literature.
Yeah, yeah. That's like I'm more of like into revelation, I guess, like
Have
poetry
you
and like
read
that
the
stuff.
the socialist realist book. It was posted in the 30s. It's called uh, The Road to the Ocean. You know that one?
No, I haven't read that one.
Have you heard of it?
I don't know if that is that the like exact English translation. Does it have a different name, or because I don't recall that
Um,
now?
it's uh called The Road to the Ocean. Leonid Leonov.
I don't know that one. No. Is it
Um,
good? Have you read it?
yeah, I really like it. I really like it. It's probably one of I don't read a lot of literature actually. I'm kind of a fanatic. I only read theory. The subtlety of literature is I don't have the
I'm
patience
saying,
for it.
man,
I watch movies though,
literally
you know.
the best theory is literature.
It
Like,
is, yeah. But
I
that's
don't
why I
know.
don't see. Look, I'll read philosophy. I'll read Hegel. I'll read anything. Literature is so much work for me because I don't just
It's
read
so funny, man.
Yeah,
Everyone's like, "Oh, Rick, reading books, like blah blah blah." It's actually like it's people say everyone has this anxiety because the technology, you could say, the mental like mappings, like the
yeah,
memory palaces and things like this that required to actually like enjoy type like a Renaissance satire or something is so far away from what the contemporary like pedagogical institutions
yeah. It's
train your
so
mental
hard.
habits to be.
It's so hard to appreciate. To appreciate literature, you have to commit so much. You have to really pay a lot of attention. What's being
The thing is that like the whole point of literature is it's better than philosophy for this reason
I agree.
because and when you're adapting your mind as a reader to like read this book, change in your mind is a change in your reality. Like you will walk around after reading certain books and you will never see things the same way
Well,
again.
if you look at philosophers, all they do is borrow sayings and mannerisms from literature, and you think it's just an irony, or like as Shakespeare said, or as whatever said. Like Hegel does this all the time, for example.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because literature is where the fundamental stuff is, right? Philosophy is just a secondhand attempt to,
Just like the theology of revelation. So you could say
yeah,
like this philosophy is then like Hegel's sort of like the theology of the radical reformationist literature.
yeah, yeah, I would say so.
That's how it's made sense to me. And I would say like, like that's even where like sort of Marx and Engels are to me in a sense, where I think like make they say a lot about it shows a lot about like the reality of
Oh,
Christianity.
this is also important. You know, a lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of people speculate, oh, why is it that the revolution happened in Russia? Well, I'll tell you one thing that made the Bolsheviks better than the European Marxists. They all came from the whole reason they became Bolsheviks was because of literature. It was all literature. It was all Russian revolutionary literature from the 19th century. That was their background. And if you think about it in America, you ask, okay, why are these people calling themselves communists? It's also for aesthetic reasons. And by aesthetic reasons, I don't mean cosmetic. I mean like it's grounded in this like this aesthetic that of like this is how I make sense of the world, right? Through this literary
This is the
way.
story that I live in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But when you look at American leftists, the literature, quote unquote, that they're coming from, it's the like literature of Disney Channel teen tween shows and the CW shows, just fucking Tumblr bullshit or whatever. And that's where their whole literary aesthetic is coming from. It's coming from dumb movies and shit. Whereas, but I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I know movies are more stupid, but I also kind of play with movies a little bit too. I play with The Dark Knight Rises, uh, Bane, and that kind
Dude,
of shit.
I'm just telling you,
Yeah,
man, like Chris Nolan is the most obvious British intelligence
he's the
agent
biggest piece
in
of shit ever.
the
Trust me.
world. Dude, do you know what school he went to? Like his whole life? Like what
He's.
his family? He's like a British East India guy, like
I
way back,
hate. You know, I hate
generations.
him. Right. I only like his Batman movies. Like it's almost like the devil made this movie, and that's how you can see. the anxieties of the ruling class or whatever. And that's why
Yeah,
the
no, that's
villains
true.
are the ones I'm with there,
Yeah,
right?
no, that's like that's like the irony of it, right? Is that everyone actually like no one gave a shit about Batman in those
Yeah,
movies.
we like the villains. We like the things that Nolan fears and Nolan.
But then they made like the Joker movie, and like it's it's okay. It was pretty good. It was all
I
right.
liked it, yeah.
It's
But
kind of forgettable though.
yeah,
Not the
it's
staying. Not it doesn't. It won't have the staying power
Heath
as
Ledger.
the yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
Heath Ledger tapped into some shit on that one though. He went like he was like sounded like fucking like Tom Waits and like fucking like he actually
He
like
went
tried
far.
to
He
be
took
like
it
Tom
very
Waits.
far.
But the characters that he took for inspiration were interesting because he specifically was trying to be like a Tom Waits Joker, like Tom Waits, like the junkyard band, like hoarse voice, like Captain Beefheart fan Tom Waits.
I don't know who Tom Waits is. Who's Tom
Oh,
Waits?
dude, you got to listen to Tom Waits, man. This is American culture.
Tom Waits.
Gotta. Not joking. This is like vital.
Oh, I'll note. I wrote it down. But
Rain Dogs. Rain Dogs. You
yeah,
gotta listen to Rain Dogs.
yeah. I mean, but that's the thing is that what if the first step to making American communism is we just need better literature, we just need better artists, we
You
need
can't
better,
read.
yeah, or just a better aesthetic in general, right?
I wrote a really good book. I'm not gonna lie, but people can't read anymore. Or what people want to read is something that they've already read before. It's like pretty much
Yeah,
everything's very
exactly,
formulaic. Any type of
exactly.
ambition in literature is considered pretentious.
Well,
Like if you're trying to
here's the
do
thing:
anything, it's
is
people are gonna they don't want to try.
honest to God, why do you think I stream? Like, the only next step would be porn, but why do you think I stream? Because I believe you have to go to the lowest and most base medium of conveying information just to in
Yeah,
order to
I
make.
kind of agree.
Yeah.
That's why I'm on Twitter, but Twitter's like I don't know. It's Twitter's like I guess like the closest we have to a literary
Yeah.
medium.
If I believed people can be convinced like not rationally but like through using their head. Oh, thank you so much, Jackson. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you so much, man. Then I would have just continued writing my books and wrote beautiful prose and poetry and what I was working on with that. But you have to begin from the lowest in order to make an effect, you know.
No, I do think we have to make art about how we are where we are because basically the counter narrative is just the Marvel Cinematic Universe because the Marvel Cinematic Universe doesn't exist for no reason. This is
Well,
like so hard
here's the
for
thing is
people
that
to get, but it has a purpose. It's
people don't
vital to our society.
people don't even accept the possibility of other aesthetics. So that's the terrifying thing is that like any movie that defies the MCU metonymy, like where you can't be like, oh, this is just like the MC. Like any movie that is considered fascist and evil and right wing and problematic. Even fucking Joker was considered a very dangerous film because it wasn't MC. It's like it's unbelievable how we've gotten to this point where like the only aesthetic that's it's not even that it's the only one we're allowed to have. It's the only one that people recognize exists beyond which lies evil, meaninglessness, chaos, and death, or whatever, right? So it's very terrifying how like people don't even I always say I feel so much pity for the people that are hating on me on Twitter or whatever because they will never have an aesthetic experience of what I would consider authentic beauty. They will never be able to just they're missing out on a lot, is what I'm trying to say, you know?
Yeah, they are in hell
Yeah.
usually. Like they not happy people. They're usually like that's sometimes what's fun to do is like you get a critic or whatever, and you just search their for like depressed or kill myself or suicide or depressed,
Yeah.
all of these things, and it's like, oh yeah, this is the type of person.
Um yeah, I mean I don't know. It's yeah. There's just fuck, man.
There's a lot of it. It's just there's a void. It's like a nihilistic void, and I think that yeah, people should be making better art. But the thing is that the art like look at NFTs. Like what is art now? right? Like I wrote this, but like I wrote my book but the book's real point is about like what the fate of the artists like in our own time or whatever, effectively, right? And so many of the things that I wrote in this novel are now just not even metaphors; they like just exist. They're like things that I was like making up or like as like a parody or like as an extension of trends, and now they're just real. And like what's it's not what people want to read. What people want to read is the MCU version of a type of literature they already like. So it's
Oh God.
like what do you get? You get a ethno narcissistic like family chronicles in the sort of Iowa writers workshop style that the New York Times all props up. All these books no one actually reads, but everyone reviews well. They just mutually say that they're all good, but no one's actually reading these books. It's a totally like fake art market. It's a totally fake like market, pretty much always. And I've been trying to like I've always wanted to breathe life into the arts because it feels kind of moribund. But there's always good stuff happening. It's just not happening for most people. Most people don't get to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The is I don't need. I still don't really know what an NFT is, and I don't know if I want to commit to.
It's literally just a money laundering vehicle. And the reason why it has to be an art object or quote unquote considered that way is because art, in this sense, is treated uniquely in our like financial system, and like people were using like paintings and stuff to launder money, and they started to like close down those loopholes. So now we have NFTs, and all the money laundering is just going into NFTs, and people are pretending that something else is happening, but that's all it is.
I wonder if there's a way to I don't know. I'm always trying to find ways of making money. So how can I
Such
get
an
in?
American, Haas. You really are. You really, you're. I don't even.
How can I get in on this scam? Like what can I
It's
do?
the American way. That is literally the most trad thing in the world. Is like no, like think about like Ed, Ed and Eddie. Did you watch Ed, Ed and Eddie?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and like I
Yes.
kind of have a love for this sort of hucksterishness of America, where it's like people are just like fucking crazy, like plying their shit, like everyone just like out there and whatever. But it turns it. This is like a theosophical thing though, right? Because like a lot of it is like the powers of persuasion, the powers of marketing, the powers of selling yourself, the powers of like getting people to give you money. Is like
Yeah.
that's the skills that are. What's funny is, we talk about the liberal arts majors or whatever. It's like, oh, those people aren't studying real sciences. Like, you're reading theory. Like that's not a real science. Like I do hard science, and I went to business school and I studied marketing. Like it's like we have schools that are just basically black magic schools where it's like you learn how to do marketing and like consumer research and
That's
these
how
sorts
you
of
know
things.
we don't have any markets anymore. If we had real markets, we wouldn't be able to go to a school for marketing. Like a market's a
No, you have
market.
to create markets. No, you have to create markets. We create markets. That's what we do. We like that's how you make money. You don't make money by selling things in a market. You make a lot of money by creating a new market.
Yeah, true.
That's what we do. We create new markets and everything. Because that's how you make money, right? And everyone's looking for a good scam. So it's like, hey, well, I'm gonna open a market for NFTs,
I always
whatever the fuck.
saw that business school is the quickest way to waste your time because
Oh,
real
you
biz
don't understand business school. You don't understand what it's for.
really.
About creating a spirit of core. It's about networking. It's about going on
Yeah, true,
vacations with a
true. But
bunch of other
I
people.
always
You don't do
saw
fucking anything. Have you ever met anyone who's gone to
to
business
me
school?
real business is very antisocial. It's like I'm more like a Talib guy. Like you can't be in an
Talib's not a
institution.
businessman.
No,
Oh, Talib is a day trader. Talib he was on the trading desk.
but
A broker.
he's an antisocial. He represents like an antisocial.
Hey, but the thing about what he actually is, Taleb is like the stoic financial individualist who's just speculating on things and suspended in like liberal ataraxia. Like I like Taleb, but he is the epitome of like the Roman stoic, like the you know what I mean? He's just placing his bets and like with a view of the inevitable black swan of death, right?
Yeah,
But there's no resurrection here. There's no That's Taleb, but Taleb he's a day trader. This is the ideology of finance bros. This is rise and grind, Sigma grind set. This is but this is what Marx and Engels called the lumpen proletariat, reorganized at the level of like the aristocracy.
Yeah.
Like the financial anarchist, the financial pirate,
Well, I always
pirate
see
with
it.
the letter of mark.
I don't know. I always see it as antisocial because capitalism's fundamentally antisocial. Like, if we're gonna have capitalism, I'll just be a real capitalist. I'm not gonna be part of their, socialism and network with all these people. And
Well, it's like, what does capitalism mean? Because we don't have what is real capitalism. I don't think anyone who self-describes as a capitalist wouldn't call what we have now real capitalism. Is what's funny, right?
yeah,
Like if someone's like, oh, I'm a real capitalist. Like, I've read the theory. I believe in capitalism in my interpretation of it, and we definitely don't have capitalism. Here are the reforms that I would recommend so that we could have something closer to real capitalism. So, like, we don't have capitalism right now. Because like capitalism is this fucking most nebulous bullshit thing in the world. It's a complete ideological fiction. What that means to people like is so vague and diffuse.
yeah. I mean, but at the end of the day, if I always tell those people, a party is a corporation. It's a business. That's the only reason parties exist today.
That's the whole point of communism, is that it's like supposed to outcompete what is around it. It's not supposed to be put in because the good guys did a trick. Like they did a trick and they said, we're liberals, JK, we're actually super far leftists, and now you have to deal with it. And we're gonna make utopia, and you're gonna kick and scream, but it's good for your own good, which is the view of the Fabians and all of the leftists, which is that the people couldn't possibly accept this, so you have to do it through subterfuge.
Yeah.
That's not how it actually works, That's how they view it, is this sort of subterfuge.
So do you
as
have
opposed
any
to building something?
This is shifting gears, but do you have any info on the origins of the 1619 project? Like, who is anyone behind this specifically? Like, what?
I don't remember. It's some fucking. It's definitely British though.
Really?
It all connects to. Well, it all connects to like talking about like the international organization of like scientists and academic professionals, etc. In the English speaking world, the center for that is like, at the end of the day, it's like London, DC, Manhattan.
Yeah.
So, and that's one place. And their whole thing, right, is like they like the notion of the Anglosphere, and in some ways, like there's like this rehabilitation of the British Empire.
Thank you,
on.
Sorry, I was thinking some guy. But,
it's a weird form of rehabilitation, because it's one where it's like, listen, like we accept like our own sins, but like we're still doing our best. The idea of the new British Empire.
Well, because the CPUSA just endorsed it in their video. They were saying the 1619 project is the way forward.
Okay. Do you want me to tell you? Like, let's see who funds it. It literally takes me like 2 seconds to find out like what the fuck is going on with these things. Oh, it's New York Times. Then it's London.
Yeah.
The New York Times is a hereditary aristocracy,
Yeah.
Like it's like a mold bug used to always like to talk about how it's a monarchy in the state. But yeah, the New York Times just takes its orders from basically like the Guardian and like this general like British intelligence world. Think about it. They ran the Russiagate shit, right?
Yeah.
Where'd that come from? It came from British intelligence.
Yeah.
Literally. That's not even a speculation. That's just like admitted historical fact.
I know.
Point, right?
Absolutely.
Crazy. No one gives a shit, man. No one can see it. Once you have the eyes to see, though, you can't unsee it. So,
but it's
I try to like throw in like sand
you know
in
why I
eyes.
stopped being interested in that is because it's like I started to see all this shit, and then I was like, but what difference does it make? Like nobody cares, So I feel like I'm more of like in a David Lynch mentality where it's like, who cares? Just.
I've been there, man. I know what that's like. It's like I wouldn't say it's a fun place to be, but this is sort of like I'd recommend this Bologna thing where he's talking about, it's this essay he wrote about the various patrons you can have, and he says there's like this biggest gap where it's like at the end, like you realize you're writing for the void, and it's like at the end you accept that you're writing for the void, something like that, where it's really like, don't actually want to be writing for an audience or for like this particular thing to see an immediate like feedback or whatever. Like,
Yeah,
like,
that's
oh,
where I've
I want
been.
to, but like that's something you want to get over. That's a sickness. Like wanting to like get the response that you desire from people for like telling the truth. What you should really want is the recognition of like you to be already like reconciled,
No, no, that's where
where
I've been for years. Is that it's the void, right?
well,
Yeah,
I mean,
but
that's like a lot. That's like all of us. That's like a big. It's a big. Like we have a big problem of nihilism. Like I know from myself. Like I feel like hasn't been a nihilist these days.
it's like the way I've been though for years is that I didn't even go on Twitter. I was just like, I don't care to have an audience. I just want to do this for its own sake, even just maybe for me. But I don't have an audience. I only started having an audience when I went live, but I completely disconnected like my esoteric true theory that I care about with this. This is just like an experiment in popular discourse or whatever that I am not 100,000% invested in. I am invested in it to an extent, but not like my books, not like my writings. Like that's where my real soul is. This is just
Yeah, that's
an
something I like
experiment.
dealt with because like I wanted to be a writer, right? Like I love literature. I've been writing stuff for a long time, poetry and things like that. So I was always like, okay, well, like how do you actually do that? And like how do you actually like do that today? Like how do you get anyone to read your book? And it's like, okay, well, you just like go to like a good
What
school, right? Get connections to like publishing industry type people, right? And then you just get like a book deal.
what
And
even worse is how could I get people to understand it? You know what I mean? Like I have a specific sense, and how do I convey that to others? And because it's like
yeah,
seems like no,
perfectly.
yeah,
Like the thing is that you don't actually want to write for the public because writing for the public, actually a book that speaks greatly to the public means that that book is doomed to die. That book is totally irrelevant. That book is actually not even necessary because all it's doing is telling people things that they already know, right?
yeah,
Because it's like baseline readers can just totally exhaust it. And that's like most media and things people encounter, right? Where it's just like on the your first pass through, you're like, yep, this pretty much exhausted. That's about it. That's all it was. There it is. It's like a big circle, like a pops up, disappears, doesn't really make a splash because it didn't reveal anything. The books that are like immortal books, like eternal, like books, the books that stick around, where most of the time they're not ones that are popular in their time or even known, or some of them like weren't even published or just found in fragments, or things like this, like those the like Moby Dick, for instance. Moby Dick, massive flop. No one read it. Wasn't read for so long. Was like totally panned in the press, and then it was rediscovered by the modernists as like this is it. Like this is already a modernist novel. Like this was so far ahead of its time. It reveals so much because Herman Melville was so far ahead of the readers of his time that he couldn't even like he encrypted this like understanding of his own time, like theological problems and like the development of philosophy and like American history, everything he could possibly fit together. He's putting into like this encyclopedic type, like encrypted codex called Moby Dick, and people at his own time couldn't understand it.
yeah. I
Like
mean,
it was impossible for them to understand it. It was only possible for people in the future to understand it.
well, the thing is that I became aware of this, how that works. Like anything that means anything is only going to be appreciated way later. It's not going to be like, but that's why when I started streaming, I started to every time I'm like people whenever that happens to me, I'm like, okay, it's like in Terminator 2 when they're too late, and they're how they're like racing in that film against time, and you're too late, and well, it doesn't matter because it's gonna happen anyway, but still you lost. That's how I think of it too. It's like my goal is to find a way to just um make an impression now, and if I can't do that, I don't care if it like in a year or two people are like, oh, Haas was right. It's like, yeah, but I want it to be right now, you know what I mean? Like I messed
Yeah,
up. I failed.
that
You
kind
know,
of that
it's
kind
not
of
it's not enough to
desire
be
though.
right for me.
Thing is though is that I feel like that's sort of the desire to like you do a thing and then there's like the action immediate like reaction, or like
Yeah,
that you can push this over and it'll fall. This is sort of something that I think is ingrained in it's like part of the problem with our generation, or like being growing up with like this hyper stimulating environment is with like so much immediate gratification, because that's not actually like how anything works. Like anything that's meaningful does not have that sort of doesn't actually give you like immediate feedback, or it doesn't have this this relation. It's far more in the realm of ambiguity and you not knowing, like dwelling in like unknowing, and essentially like requiring faith to continue forward, right? Because like if you're writing
Yeah.
this book, if you're like say you're like Herman Melville, and you're like kind of your book sales from like your earlier books, the ones that are popular before you start to piss off the critics, your money's starting to go away. You actually have to go back to work. You can't just like fucking be a writer anymore because you're not making enough money. And so you're back at like the customs house and things like that. You're working this fucking accounting job, and you're writing fucking Moby Dick. You're writing this, like you're putting all of this effort into it. Like, how did he do it? How did he every day justify this to himself, put it out there, gets totally ravaged in the press, no one reads it, no one cares, everyone calls him a madman. People thought he was dead when he was still alive. He's like completely irrelevant to like the literary world, to like world literature. He's a castaway. People are writing things like pitying him and trying to send him money because, like, you know, he's kind of poor. This guy wrote he where did he find the power to do that? You know, like, how do you do that? What kind of mindset do you have to even be able to do something like that?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
type of faith, like Hawthorne said that Melville was the most like religious person he'd ever met, and the real problem Melville had was that he was like so dedicated to the truth that like he couldn't decide what what the historicity of Christ and things like this, and like what was true in Christianity and like what wasn't in this like age of enlightenment. Like that's why like one of his most like unread but like greatest works is Claral, which is this it's like one of the longest epic poems in English, and it's about his pilgrimage to Jerusalem when he actually did go, like his spiritual struggle there. And it's like such a marvelous fucking work of literature, you know. And it's fucking yeah, I don't know, man. It's there's a little treasures hidden in the world by people who put in a lot of work, like storing up treasures in heaven, you could say. And it's nice to see you can find them, you know. And that's what life is like. You can't really expect you you know, being in control of the powers of this world. You
Yeah.
can in eternity, if that makes sense. Like doing something like Melville does, it will pay off. Like that doesn't you don't it doesn't just
Yeah.
manuscripts don't burn, as it's as Bulgakov said in Master and Margarita, which was only published in Samizdat in his time. You know, manuscripts don't burn.
Yeah. No, I get that. It's just yeah, I mean yeah, I get what you're saying. I agree.
I mean, you're doing good stuff, and like I mostly agree with you on things, like, or at least you see a lot of the same things that I do, and which I feel like not a lot of people can see, or because and like especially like the more you are involved, the kind of more blind you become, unless you kind of are always kind of like almost ritualistically destroying your own social capital in a way, which I could say that's one way I could describe my own like internet career
Yeah.
is
Um
people call me like a relentless contrarian, but it's also like I just don't want to, like, I've had many opportunities to sell out in a larger way than I've chosen to.
how do you if you don't mind me asking, like, do you have a job right now, or what is the way you're
I just I make money from my Patreon right now.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
nice, nice.
So
That's
I've
good.
just been making the podcast, and you know, I think most of the people who subscribe to me on Patreon, like, they're just like what I do in general, you know, or like just want me to like keep doing what I'm doing, because I do like different things, you know. Like I'm talking to you right now, and like people who follow me would want me to talk to you, right?
Yeah.
So I just like I live on alms, I guess. I'm kind of like a fucking pilgrim. It's how I choose to look at it, I guess. But I'm hoping I have like other artistic projects in the works and things like that. But I sometimes feel like almost more important. I mean, Northrop Frye said this too, that like in our age, it's almost more important to like get people to like teach people how to read again in the first place than to like write something new for them to read, because new things that are being made aren't very new. They're not really like that necessary, if that makes sense. Like there's much more to be gained from us like learning more about the past than there is for us to like make another like trendy piece of like what, like another kind of like Black Mirror dystopia sci-fi thing or whatever that everyone does. Like, do we need another one of these? Are they revealing anything? Not particularly.
Yeah.
It's like, what are we really alienated from is like fucking reality, like the bigger reality of like global history and like, you know, these sorts of things. We don't have like historical epics as movies anymore, you know? Nothing's grounded in reality or in any sort of continuity. It's all sci-fi worlds and alternate realities.
Yeah, I mean, literature is harder to do than theory. Literature is harder than philosophy. Literature is harder than anything. Before we have the courage of great literature and art in this country, we're not going to have, I don't think. I think the reason people are on board with the infrared thing is aesthetic. Honestly, it is. It's that there's just this fundamental sense. Aesthetic doesn't mean just cosmetic. I don't mean superficial. I just mean like it's a story that people like, you know, and that's why I've been able to make the progress that I have. But it's not entirely sufficient, you know, because
Yeah.
I still manage to be entangled in this discursive bullshit where all these fucking stupid people on Twitter are making this like, oh, are you an American chauvinist? And you know, like this dumb bullshit that completely is besides the point, you know.
I mean, this is like what happens.
My whole aim in life right now is just I want to get to a space beyond the discourse. I don't want to have to talk to leftists for the rest of my life. I don't ever want to have to even talk to these people. Like I don't ever want to ever have to like even see these people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you just have to like build your own fucking thing, basically. Like
Yeah.
that's sort of a that was sort of the tragedy, at least like me being like my involvement on like internet politics or whatever, is that my whole thing was always like I just want to like create like be like make like art, like let's try to do something like you know, meaningful or whatever that'll like that's really was more my inspiration. Like I've just wanted to like make something like artful or like considered or like kind of mind altering in a way, right? Like that's what art is really supposed to do. Um, and that's like what a lot of the spirit of like 2015 and things like that was to me, was like a sort of like it was like 2010s aesthetics had gotten so old, and like they're still around, right? But there was like this brief attempt to do something else, but it's kind of the tragedy for me is that it's like reconformed into this like very reducible like, you know, like fash wave, like Roman statue, blah blah. This shit is like so stale and it's not real life.
Yeah.
The leftist shit is all this, like they don't make good art. Like that's like, do you remember like there's all these like people go off and they're like, you know, right wing or conservative people never make great art or whatever. It's like only radical leftists
It's
make
not
great
true.
art, and it's like
It's
that's
not
number
true.
one, like totally untrue. But number two, like what have you done for me lately? Like what are your great works of art here, pal? If you're in charge and this is your hegemony, like what great artworks are you
Well,
making?
it's the same as revolutions. People are trying to claim the continuity of the great revolutionaries, but it's a tautology. It's like, how do you know Lenin would be on your side? How do you know Mao would be on your side? Like, why? Because you feel like there's just this unbroken chain of progress and continuity
Apostolic succession. Yeah.
discursively. Yeah, I mean, but how do you know that in Lenin's time he wasn't considered a shitlord grifter who was like going against the discourse? Because when you read it, that's really what it sounds like. You know, it sounds like Lenin was a pariah for the international socialist movement, who was not liked by the majority of socialists internationally, who was going against the grain, and who was being canceled by social democracy. The same is true for Mao in regards to the Soviet bureaucracy. It's like, how do you know that, you know, the Twitter mob would have been with Lenin at the time? Because I think all evidence points to the contrary. right?
Yeah, no, these people, like, yeah, they're like, oh, in the time, these people would be Nazis in Nazi Germany. Like, they don't have the actual courage of convictions because they don't really have real convictions.
Yeah.
They have principles, they have positions, they have
But
speculations, but they don't have
they keep quoting
wisdom.
Marx and Lenin and Mao and all these revolutionaries as if they're part of the continuity of that. And then, oh, Lenin, what you see, guys, our discourse represents the true inheritor and successor to Lenin. And it's like, but back then your discourse was international social democracy, right? You think that when Lenin broke with those people, he was just like he was affirming the discourse? No, he was going against everything, you know? I mean, I don't know how these people what they have in mind, but um he was
They're actually pretty content with the way things are, actually, is the
I
secret.
just don't think they have the recognition that um there can be meaning beyond the discourse, you know? It's not everything. They feel like if the discourse breaks down, nothing can be meaningful. So all the great revolutionaries in history were always already part of the discourse, right? They were always already part of the Twitter mob, and they would have gotten 20,000 likes on Twitter, and they would have been ratioing these people, and that's how it would have been.
Yeah.
But you know,
They're like they like, yeah, that they're when they are doxing a soccer mom for for protesting against Antifa or something.
yeah. Well, what I tell people is like,
That's what Mao would have done.
here's
Yeah.
all you have to do to prove these people are not the successors of Lenin and Mao and stuff. It's like, okay, Lenin and Mao built parties and led revolutions. How close are you to even getting to a fraction of that? You're nowhere near that. So like, how do you know you are the successor to these
Well,
revolutionaries?
effectively,
Yeah,
what they'll say though, they'll just do this. They'll go, "Well, you're not doing that, so effectively, we're both now just acknowledging that we're just LARPing. So stop pretending like we're doing anything
yeah.
other than
But I feel
LARPing."
like the difference with me at the least is that I just started, like a few months ago. So with the consequences I have for what people are going to be doing politically, we don't know yet. But what they've been doing has not made
Yeah.
any change for decades, you know?
Well, the
I'm
thing is,
open to
though,
failing. If my
or
yeah.
you have to be like Abi right now. You have to lead from. If this is a time where martyrdom is called for leadership, uh, because I feel like your job on Twitch is to destroy the discourse, and so what does that mean? Like, how do you do that? Like, how are you going to get to the point where like what is it? I feel like you've made a name for yourself from being like basically what this cancellation of yours recently, right? The whole tropes of it is from like the fact that you were like being like unabashedly like masculine, or like invoking masculinity as like in a aesthetically, which is not normal for the most part on Twitch. Um, so that they associate that with like incels, etc. Right?
Yeah. The one of the chairs of the Communist Party, she was like,
So
she was
that's
like,
like,
sorry, you there? One of the chairs of the Communist Party was like, I don't know what's going on with the socialist patriots, but it kind of reminds me of the incel movement. It's like,
yeah.
what?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's because they have to fit things into like a category to like unperson you or whatever.
But what?
So
So
really,
you're saying in their view, like masculinity means incel.
what it means is what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to be like a polite person, like Destiny or whatever. Honestly, this is the thing. Like, if you actually
But
really
to
wanted to
be
destroy
but to be fair though, but those I don't aren't those people the incels like Destiny? No,
Destiny goes to Destiny's
he's
at
famous.
orgies and he's whatever.
He's famous. I get that, but like when you
I think
take
it's
away the
bitches.
fame,
I don't have a problem saying that. I think Destiny's a respectable person in a lot of ways.
no, he is. But I'm just saying like aren't those I don't know like it just seems a little paradoxical to me. I don't know, but
Everyone's an incel right now because, and actually women are, there's more that it's the year of the femcel right now. Did you see that there's more women now than men who haven't had sex in the last 6 months? So there's more women.
I feel like
Well, everyone's an incel
but it isn't
now.
yeah isn't that kind of more choice though because I think women can pretty much choose, right? Like men are the one who have to.
It's not really. You
No,
see, I mean, they kind of got you a little bit here. Yeah, I feel like you understand the dynamics.
no.
The fem cells are real, dude. Cells
Really?
are real. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
There's actually more of them than incels right now. It's
You
actually a
know,
huge
I
change.
never wanted to be like super into the sexuality stuff in the first. I don't know why people are saying.
Honestly, it's just
Yeah,
like Evo psych bullshit, and people just like
yeah.
basically just reify the market of like Tinder, and they make these three metaphors become conflated of like the sex, the marketplace, and nature, like are all three the same thing. So it's like cat like social capital is like also pussy. So it's like if you don't make money, then you're an incel because you don't get pussy. If you see what I'm saying, like it's all three things. So you're an
Yeah,
incel
yeah.
if you don't seem like you're gonna make a lot of money.
I see. It's just weird that there's so much public investment in the sexuality of political figures. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
it's not weird because we live in like porn empire, and if you're just like, oh,
yeah,
everything's porn, then it's like, yeah, obviously people beat off to like the president, like
true, true.
probably.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it that is weird, but it's just funny seeing the like this 7-year-old woman who's the chair of the CPUSA. Like, it kind of reminds me of the ins. Like, why though? You know?
Also, like incels is like such an incel. The age of the incel is already over. Like that, it was white boy summer was the end of the age of the incel. It's the age of the fem cells now, and actually, you're all gonna when you. I feel like people are underrating how bad that is going to make
Well, okay.
things.
To entertain that for a second, it is. I do find it a little bit weird that I did not interact with these women. I had nothing against them. I never said anything bad against them. I had nothing to do with them. And yet I had scores of women like imposing themselves on me in an unwanted way with pictures, inappropriate pictures, and
No, men can't be sexually harassed by women. Like it's fine. And saying that like you get no pussy and like your dick's small and like trying to like sexually humiliate you,
but
that's totally
it
fine.
reminds me of the behavior of a bitter man against a random woman. Like, why are these women coming at me when it reminds me of something an incel would do to a woman? I've met women
Fem
actually.
cells.
Women
They're
show
fem
me
cells.
a lot of women show me that they're stalkers and they're like harassers and shit. And for the first time in my whole life, I saw women doing that, and it was against me, right? Which shocked me because I was like, "But why? I never." It's not like I get it if you defend yourself, then whatever, go hard. But what did I ever do to you? You know, what did I do to deserve this? You know, I didn't deserve a picture of your. You know what I
Well,
mean?
it's not for you. It's nothing. Actually, those pictures are worth nothing. It's meaningless. You probably don't even remember what they look like because
I
there's so much
don't.
pornography
I
everyone's
thankfully I
inundated
don't.
with. But it's like it's not even like special. It doesn't mean anything. It's like fucking spam. Like that's like the funny thing is that like that sort of that would be like in the 1940s. That's like that would be one of the most intimate things you could possibly do. Send someone
Maybe
a picture
someone
like
said
that.
that it's because I'm from a Lebanese culture, but I just feel like when you send someone nude pictures of yourself, it's like that's seems like a personal thing to do, you know? Hold
It's
on.
not anymore, I guess, right? We have like that's the internet, that's porn stars, etc. So not that special. Like that was actually just self promotion on their part. They were just using you as an advertising vehicle. And basically, you could say in a way they were really advertising towards like the other guys, where they feel like now they're closer to her because they're not like you. So then they're. Does that make sense? Like, there's a lot of like parasocial, weird like fetish things in America. This is the symbolism of the Whore of Babylon in the Bible. Actually, is the way all of this works.
Yeah, I mean, so that's interesting. I'm not. You're way more in tune with cultural trends than me. I don't. It's hard for me to keep up with all this shit. But
I think it's
um,
like just like that's that's the Zeitgeist or whatever, man, or the Volksgeist. It's you gotta stay in touch with it.
yeah, yeah. I that yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, I do think people are very unsatisfied in general. People are very unsatisfied with their sexuality and their relationships and their lives.
Absolutely.
But I just hate. I always preferred privacy. I wish I didn't have to be involved in other people's sexuality and vice versa. I wish I could just be private, but I can't anymore. I'm a public figure, so I always have to talk about it all the time now.
Yeah. It's I'm like, what's funny is that like I'm like generally a pretty private person, but now I'm like a very public person, I guess.
Yeah.
And that was like hard for me, but it was like kind of like I grew a lot through. It was kind of more like I just realized how little I actually like. Shit, like you have like everyone has like these insecurities about things and whatever, and clearly like that's what everyone's going to like target or like attempt to target in like manipulating you in various ways. But like it doesn't really matter. Like you like it's you can kind of like accept things about yourself and not really matter. But it's that's like the problem. It sucks being a public person in that sense. Like I do wish have done it like fully anonymously, but it's not really possible. I tried really hard. I was like, didn't get doxxed for a long time, but you can't. It's inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird. I don't know. My internal reaction all the time is just uh puzzlement. I'm always just puzzled. Like, how am I supposed to react? You know what I mean? Like I react for public reasons, but internally, I'm always just like, I force myself to care more than I do authentically.
Yeah.
I force
What you
myself
mean?
to, but that's why I'm taking
where,
breaks from Twitter and shit, because it's like it's
no,
so
it's like
tiring.
actually bad for you.
It's
like,
tiring, yeah.
yeah.
Because my fear is that
war.
if I go with my instinct and just ignore everything, they'll see that as like weakness, and I'll look bad. So I have to do something.
The thing is like my solution basically is that like I don't care to have a large audience at all. I actually try sometimes to like get rid of parts of my audience. So been my solution, because it's like if people are being like annoying, I just get rid of them now, and it's great. If people like if someone's just being pestering or getting a quote tweeted by annoying people, I just block them. I just get rid of them, and it's a wonderful. It's great. Highly recommend doing it. There's actually, because as you say, like you saying you want to be above the discourse. The moment you're above the discourse is once
the
you
weird
start
thing
blocking
is
people.
the psychological projection that a lot of people do. Like, I can't pick up on social cues or something, but every time something happens, like people quote to me, they're like, "Ha ha ha! You just got shattered. How do you feel?" And I'm like, not nothing. And then they're like, "Oh, that's a cope. Your soul
Mad.
your soul has been shattered and you're broken and destroyed." And it's like, did something happen that I'm not aware of?
It's literally like black magic, because what it is
yeah,
like if you have a group of people, right, and they all start saying this, and they all start like, no, you're broken from this, like, and you're really actually like,
because it makes me paranoid, and it makes me think like, did something happen that I should care about?
Well, the thing is, exactly. So that like, and then if you get enough people doing this, then if you would like start to believe it yourself, right? And then you kind of make it actually happen, right? If enough people, if every day everyone you met was just like looking at you and they're like, kill yourself. Like, how long would it take? How long would it take for you to like start thinking about it?
Actually, a lot of people did say that to me. A lot of people.
But do you see what I'm saying? Where it's like it's actually like that is like black magic means is that sort of this sort of like the use of these sort of like repeated symbol exposures, to mold your mind. So like these people, like effectively, like you can say it's like very LARPy and stuff, and it's like cyberbullying's not real. You can turn it off. All of this stuff's true, but like a lot like I especially like I try to like see the best in people or like be charitable, even people who are being mean to me. I like sometimes will try to like be pretty even-handed or whatever, but fuck, I lost my train of thought there. Shit. It's that's how it is, man. I don't know. I don't know, man. Fucking internet dynamics. It's like I can't explain shit to you. It's good. I can talk to you because you have to like go through it, but like I never talk about like being subject to this sort of shit like to other people because it would sound like I'm insane, even though I'm describing things that are like perfectly real. You know, to like imagine like you're like sitting like hanging out with like your friend who like is like an electrician or something, and they're
Yeah.
like so how's life going, and it's like just people trying to like hack into all my accounts and post my information on like a website that's solely inhabited by like neo Nazis and hyper anarchists, like leftists for some
Yeah.
reason, both of them.
Well, here's the thing:
Yeah,
is like I never thought of myself as such a good person, but compared to these people, I think I am because what I struggle to do is I always try to put myself in their head and be like, why are you doing this? Why do this? Like I wouldn't even do this to someone I hate. Like, what is the is this just like a way of defying God and just like testing testing the limits of, because to me these are just things that are not possible. I couldn't spend my time on Twitter constantly fucking, you know, I try to put myself in their head and be like, where are you getting this evil from? Where do you get that from? You know, where does that even come from? Where does this hatred come from? You know?
well, the funny thing is that like it is just from like a bitterness, and it actually is like it's like a self-hatred which manifests as like a desire like for like the parts of the self that would want to be like amputated or whatever is like projected out into the world. So it's like you have to like go out and like kill these things that sort of represent like unacknowledged
So
parts of
what
yourself.
do you think I represent for all? I have, my haters go hardcore. I have a lot of like really hardcore. They just genuinely hate my guts. Like what is it that I represent to them? Do you think?
The same thing that fucking Stalin represented to all the fucking Trotskyists in New York City
Really? So it's like you think
about it.
it's like an Oedipal thing, like a fatherly figure to them or something, or
Like authority. They don't want like they like consensus. They like quote unquote democratic, meaning oligarchic consensus. They don't like authority. They don't like like anyone speaking as if they have authority or that authority that like they can that the authority comes from their own understanding and not from the consensus.
okay, I see. I see.
This is what the like Blake has this in like the everlasting gospel, right, where it says he spoke with authority, not like a scribe. You know, like he's not pointing being like they're like scribes, right? Like they'll go and they'll be like, no, the consensus, right? It says in this part, you have to go point at the document and then like you turn it into like this like flow chart, right? We're gonna make the consensus flow chart. We'll all agree to it. But like what Jesus doesn't have a flow chart. He's just saying like I am the truth.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting. Um, I just don't
Like
know
yeah,
why
if you
it's
go
such a.
out there and you're like, I'm telling you the truth.
Do you
Like,
think?
and
Do you
how do
think
I know
people
this
feel
truth? Because it
like?
is the truth.
Do you think people feel like they either have to destroy me or like, um, just irrationally submit to me, and they just want to preserve their rational faculties, and that's how they're doing it is by attacking me? Because I can understand that. It's like they're just trying to survive. Basically, they feel like if they
Well,
don't,
the thing is that your criticisms are criticisms of the consensus. So to
yeah.
diverge from the consensus would mean that authority no longer resides in the consensus. If like an individual can be right and the consensus wrong, that throws the organizational principle of this like what like anarcho syndicalist ideology of a like loop, like because that's they believe effectively that like democratic like selection or whatever leads to perfect consensuses, and that there will never be like a situation where the consensus is wrong and like an individual on their own correct.
Yeah. Their dependency on the consensus personally is maybe that's just what they've attached their entire sense of self to, or
Well, the thing is that you attach your sense of self to this consensus because the closer you approximate the consensus, that's like considered a proxy for like your intelligence
what?
and also your moral good.
Yeah. I'll tell you why it's I'm struggling because I've been a leftist for 10 years. So I've been there, done that for every single thing, you know, pretty much. Almost like I've been through all the tendencies, and I've been there. I've been the ultra leftism and the enthusiasm and the edginess and the right. I've been everywhere, right, as a leftist. But I can never search back into my past, um, and find like any point of being able to be relatable to the haters. I was never a hater, if that makes sense, right? Like someone who spends their time harassing people and like I debate people and yell at them and shit, but then it's done and I move on. It's I don't.
Well, there's also a difference between like a type of like troll where you're trying to elicit like a dialectical response or whatever. Like if
Yeah.
you like, you know what I mean, versus one where it's just like you die. Like there's a difference. Like there's a way to be like combative without being like trying to be like an eliminationist or like a liquidationist or something. But like one where you're trying to invite like a riposte so that you can like reach
What's the
some sort
meme of
of
like this the screeching hatred of the guy who tears his face off? I never have that feeling. I've never had that feeling in my life. You know what I'm talking
I mean,
about?
it's kind of like an autistic thing though. Like it's kind of like
Wait, hold on.
colloquial. I meant colloquial sense, like the way people use it on the internet or whatever.
Like in like
Meaning like the dominance
no
of
no you mean like you
rationality and
mean
organization.
like an automated response not in the sense of like people with disabilities or anything like that.
No.
Just yeah.
Uh,
All right,
I
yeah.
mean I mean in the sense of a kind of attachment to a specific like organizational principle or a specific like world picture. You know what I mean? Where it's like
Yeah.
like basically just like the dislike of like change. Really. I think
Yeah.
like the fear of change, like a kind of pathological fear of change, actually, I think drives a lot of leftists, which is kind of funny. Um,
Yeah.
because they actually don't want anything to change. Actually,
Yeah.
don't want anything to really change. Kind of want things to be as they are, except more so.
Yeah, I understand. Like that's very miserable to me. That's very sad, but
The conservatives, in a real
yeah.
sense,
Well,
because
that's what I
they
said
actually
before
are
too is
defending
like
the system we have.
if you think about what reactionary means, aren't they the reactionaries?
Objectively, yeah.
Yeah.
But we're in a carnival upside down like mirror universe where pretty much everything means this exact opposite. And this is what
Yeah.
you'd expect in like somewhere that's like dominated by the Antichrist effectively. Is that it's like a perpetual carnival where everything's upside down all the time. And then as soon as you have like the camera obscura, like the view of like the Christian hermeneutic, right? You know, what is he who's last here shall be first there, you know? And then you can look at America and you flip everything upside down and it's like putting on those they live glasses, you know? So it's like, who are the fascists? It's Antifa, you know? Perfect. Like everything. You can do it with everything.
Yeah.
People call me a contrarian, but what I think is that I'm just like I look at
The
everything in America
latest
upside down.
the latest thing on Twitter that I saw was that the patriotic socialists are going to be the embryo of fascism in America, and that we need to study the history of fascism in Italy and Germany to stop Haas and the patriotic socialists because they're mirroring the history of fascism.
Ironically, like we were on the like what we tried to debate fucking Keith Woods and Joel or whatever, and they're the ones actually trying to do that. They're not calling it communism. They're calling it like fucking like labor nationalism or syndicalism or some fucking stupid fusionism or what synarchism or archaeofuture. Like they'll come up with some fucking name for it. So
Well,
like, is that
it's
it's not
just
even the same thing?
it's
Dumb.
weird. It's weird to me because it's like uh it's coming from the Vaush school of Marxism, according to which everything that's not liberal is fascist. So
Well,
if you defy the liberal consensus, that means you're a fascist,
fascist. Yeah.
right? But And also, it's interesting to me that they think there's only one anti-fascist consensus, the liberal one, but the Soviet Union bore by far most of the brunt of that war. So the Soviet anti-fascism is completely different than the Western kind. And for example, Lukashenko is an
Already
anti-fascist.
talking this. No one knows any of this, dude.
Yeah.
Where did that happen in Marvel? I don't know what you're talking about. What Marvel
Yeah.
movie was that?
But here's the thing: is that both Putin and Lukashenko are anti-fascists, right? But they're outside of Western liberalism.
No. They're fascists according to these people.
It's like, why is there only one anti-fascist consensus? Why? What about the Soviet anti-fascism?
Go, well, is Joe Biden a fascist? And they go, yeah. It's like, so did you vote for a fascist? Like, who isn't a fascist? Like you? You're just you? Guys,
Well, they're basically saying that. So this is the straw man that's being created. The patriotic socialists are super enthusiastic and jingoistic about American
imperialism. Yeah, we're super into that.
What the? It's like that's why I believe in Satan, because who else but Satan
Lord of lies
can create such a deception? Like anyone who I've spent my whole time on Twitch yelling at people for being Anglo imperialist. Like I'm just again I'm puzzled. I'm stunned. I don't even know how to respond to it. It's like, what the fuck is going on? It's like, imagine being framed in a crime and you just, how are you supposed to respond? You're not guilty.
Dude, this is have you read Dostoevsky?
I know, but I'm familiar with like his themes and his vibe.
That's a big part of the Brothers K, is that exact thing of that feeling. TFW, that feel one. But yeah, I know what you mean, man. I don't know. It's kind of funny. It's comical in some senses, like the hyperbole that exists on the internet. You know, like that tens of thousands of people are like disavowing the communist patriotism or whatever. It's funny, if that has any bearing on like the actual reality we live in.
I'm so sick of being like an Oedipal father that has to be primordially repressed in order to create communities, because that's happened so many times in my life where like I end up like people create communities around hating me. I feel like that was, there is a psychoanalytic for my federal agents that are after me, whatever. Let me give you a pro tip. This was true in like elementary school too. This is like a deep trauma I have. It's like friend groups formed based on excluding me, hating me. You know what I mean? Just feel like that's still true. Like, entire communities prop up just because they just repress. They're just repressing the fact they hate me, but they can't justify it. It was like the one singular irrational point of consensus that they just subconsciously agree with.
2 holes.
Thank you, Zenro.
Yeah. No. Was it? I don't think I was not. I've never been like I'm hated on the internet, I guess, but that was kind of a novelty for me.
Yeah.
Generally well liked, like my whole life. Like it's funny, like
with me, it's like people genuinely either love me or hate me. I don't have anyone who's just like indifferent. Like
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Get you. Yeah.
But I wish I did. I wish I had people that were just indifferent.
It's kind of funny to me because that's something that like people on the internet try to like suggest, is that like I was like the nerd getting stuffed into a locker or whatever, and I was like, I was pretty fine. Like it was pretty. I miss at least seeing like that many people that I was friends with. Actually, that's probably the only part of.
No, I swear it's so weird because my internet presence has just become how I was in elementary school and part of middle school, which was I was neither the nerd nor the popular kid. I was always the controversial guy who was like, I divided people. Everyone was always divided over me. Like, you either loved me or hated me. but I was just a source of conflict. That's what I was. I always just started conflict.
Did that
And
too. Yeah,
yeah,
I feel
I
you.
was I
We
was
probably are
never
similar in a lot
I
of
was
ways.
always the one who like disrupted I would disrupt a friend group. I would disrupt social dynamic, and people would just be divided on me as Haas or a complete piece of shit, fuck him, whatever, or are we loyal to him? We like it's always I've always been a source of division my whole life.
Yeah. How you feel, man? I
Yeah.
used to do that a lot too. But I always I thought it was fun. Mine was more oh man, I don't know. I just like a kind of more of a troll, I guess, online back at years ago. But it was fun. I
I've always
like
been a troll on for as long as I've ever been on the internet. I was a troll. All I did was troll. That's all I did. When I never was a gamer. When I had the video game consoles and I had multiplayer exclusively to troll. Even when I was playing
trolling was the
Halo,
most fun. Yeah.
all I did was troll in video games. That's all I ever did.
Kind
And
of, do you know what that sort of represents? It's something that I think about a lot because it's like what I like to do with video games was I never liked to play the game that the video game was, but I like to make up a game
yes,
inside of the game.
absolutely, absolutely.
And
That's
that
exactly how I was. Absolutely.
that's what I feel like is yeah, that's the key.
Yeah, I never played games, dude. I never played games like based on what the game was meant for. I always invented my own. Even Halo, like one of the reasons I like
Yeah, that's
Halo.
why Halo was beautiful. The custom game settings was
Yeah,
incredible.
I didn't even play the matchmaking. The Halo was for me theater mode, Forge, and custom games, and all I would do is make my own games in those. I would make my own things, right? And Um, yeah, but no, I was always a troll online. You know, like when Facebook first started out in middle school, I made like 35 Facebook accounts just to troll my classmates. Like I would make like every day I'd make a new Facebook account and I would add I would add everyone in my school and just like you know what I
Pretty
mean?
good.
And this was when
Pretty good.
Facebook first launched. This is when Facebook first launched, right? And um yeah, I mean, like, in high school, in freshman year, I had like a cousin that went to school with me, and I made a fake account of like this like scary white guy who was like bald that I put as the profile picture, so I'd made him look like a skinhead or whatever, and I added them. He was like my cousin, so he's Arab or whatever, and I added him, and I said that I was I was transferring into the school, and that I have an issue with Muslims or whatever, like just some shit like that, like just to scare him or whatever, and it got out
That's
of
the
hand.
path.
So I fessed up to it, but
That's the radicalization pipeline to being a Deus Volt neo-Nazi.
thank you,
Look,
Moran.
we just proved your incel origins of of creating sock puppet white nationalists to scare
Yeah, I don't know why I just
POC.
confessed. I don't know why I just
Scare
confessed that,
POC.
but
God has.
um,
You're That's
no, I mean,
unforgivable.
I told him like a day later that it was me, so I didn't
Yeah.
have it go on too long, but
Yeah, that was a
he
good bit though.
started
That was a
freaking
good
out.
bit.
But
That's
yeah,
funny.
I mean, all I ever did was troll. That's all I ever did. But I mean,
Well, trolling still effectively that was why you got such a big response, because it was a good troll. It's not even the best trolls are telling the truth. That's what I always say.
that's true.
Just
That's
telling
true.
the truth is the greatest troll.
I feel like Twitter to
Amazing.
me, I was trolling almost the whole time on Twitter, but I was also invested in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like everything I was doing was to provoke people, but also because I felt like I was at war and I have to win the troll war. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
That was Yeah, no, that was kind of a mindset that was a big part of the 2000s to late 2010s internet was this idea of cyber activism as being we're freelance intelligence agents for the
Oh
people,
yeah,
striking the
another thing
IA
I did
websites or whatever.
every day was prank call. every business, every hotel, I would, yeah. Sometimes even when I was alone, just with no one there, just for my own sake, I just prank call this shit out of like everyone all the time. I would prank call relatives. I would prank call like distant relatives. Everyone. I would prank call everything. Growing up.
And I feel you. I was a bit of a troll myself. I didn't do any. I didn't get up to that much stuff, but
No, I was like, it was scary with me because I was like fanatical about it. It wasn't even a. It's like
I liked.
it
I
was
watched
almost
that
like
video
I
of.
was a demon or something, you know?
I liked the video of your video about Dragon War. That
Yeah,
one
you saw
was.
that?
I liked that a lot. That was it reminded me of like myself as like a kid and stuff like that. Like Dragon War, and like that's like so much like a great metaphor for what the internet's like. I thought that whole story.
Yeah, because it's like the unintended consequences, you know?
Yeah. I'm getting a little tired here, man, but I'm gonna eat some food and stuff. But this was a really nice
Yeah,
talk.
yeah.
I like
I gotta
talking
use
to
the
you, man.
bathroom too, but yeah, good talk, man.
Peace out, man. Have a good one.
You too. See you later.